Si je peux demander à Athénao combien de temps il faut pour que tous les gens puissent se connecter?
Alors, attendez une minute, là, c'est en cours de monter. Donc là, actuellement, vous êtes à 73, 75, donc ça monte. Attendez 30 secondes, vous pouvez démarrer.
Alors, j'en profite pour vous dire que il risque d'y avoir autour de 200 ou 300, peut-être 400 personnes, certainement plus, puisque des établissements d'enseignement, particulièrement sur le continent, de l'autre côté de la Méditerranée, a préféré faire une connexion groupée pour des salles d'étudiants. Donc, derrière une connexion, il peut y avoir 20, 30, 40 ou 50 étudiants derrière. Donc, c'est pour ça que je demandais à Athénao de me donner un petit peu le feu vert. Let's go? On peut y aller?
Vous pouvez, on atteint à presque 100 participants.
Donc, bah, le temps que je dise ma petite introduction,
Euh,
donc, comme je ne vois pas les participants, je leur
Claude,
souhaite la bienvenue.
Claude, est-ce que je peux avoir un petit mot avant qu'on envoie le webinaire?
Oui,
Je tiens d'abord bonjour à tous et à toutes. Je tiens quand même à dire que on a des inscriptions uniques, c'est-à-dire que ce webinaire est retranscrit, projeté dans pas mal d'amphithéâtres et de salles de classe, à travers nos 460 écoles. Donc, les chiffres sont trompeurs. Je pense que nous avons dépassé largement nos 350 participants qui seront, en tout cas, qui seront là pour entendre vos, et je l'espère, riches interventions.
merci Bruno. Donc, je déclare ce grand webinaire qui rassemble les ambassadeurs ouverts. Nous allons passer à peu près 3 heures ensemble par groupe, parce que c'est déjà extrêmement gentil que mesdames et messieurs les ambassadeurs aient pu nous accorder du temps. Mais bien sûr, nous ne leur demandons pas de rester 3 heures. Et ce sont les étudiants qui vont travailler ensuite sur les différents propos. Alors, qu'est-ce que la FEDE? La FEDE est une ONG qui est partenaire du Conseil de l'Europe, partenaire de l'UNESCO et partenaire de l'Organisation internationale de la francophonie. Et nous sommes membres, et je suis membre du bureau du comité directeur de l'éducation au sein du Conseil de l'Europe. Alors, la FEDE est une fédération qui est conceptrice de programmes pédagogiques et qui se positionne sur ce qu'on appelle l'éducation de qualité, c'est-à-dire une éducation qui réponde à la fois aux exigences du marché de l'emploi, mais aussi aux enjeux sociétaux et qui développe le concept de compétences citoyennes. À l'occasion de son 61e anniversaire, la FEDE a souhaité promouvoir la Journée mondiale de la diversité culturelle pour le dialogue et le développement, plus communément appelée la Journée de l'interculturalité. I'm going to switch to English. To showcase our organization's value, democracy, the rule of law, intercultural dialogue, gender equality, respect for human rights, sustainable development, and access to quality education for all. Since 2003, UNESCO has celebrated World Day for Cultural Diversity and Dialogue and Development every year on the 21st of May, in order to celebrate both the rich diversity of cultures across the world and the crucial role played by intercultural dialogue in promoting peace and sustainable development. According to UNESCO, 99% of today's conflicts are located in countries where intercultural dialogue is limited or inexistent. La FEDE remercie les 25 ambassadeurs pour leur participation à ce webinaire au cours duquel ils pourront exposer leur façon d'appréhender les relations interculturelles et renforcer les ponts avec les acteurs du monde de l'éducation. 3 groupes de parole auront lieu toutes les heures et nous démarrons cette journée avec son Excellence Papendiaï, ancien ministre de l'Éducation et ambassadeur de la France auprès du Conseil de l'Europe. Cher Papendiaï, peut-être une première question. Quelle est votre vision de l'interculturalité et au cours de votre carrière, comment en avez-vous fait l'expérience?
Bonjour à toutes et à tous. J'espère que vous m'entendez bien. J'ai mis mon micro, normalement ça doit fonctionner. Ravi d'échanger avec vous. La notion d'interculturalité du côté français, c'est une notion qui n'est pas si courante ou moins courante dans notre vocabulaire public courant que dans d'autres pays. C'est dû à une histoire, à l'histoire particulière de notre pays, de ses relations avec le reste du monde en particulier. Si je devais en donner une définition très, très simple, je dirais qu'il s'agit de faire dialoguer les cultures, mais j'insiste sur cette notion du dialogue parce que des cultures mises les unes à côté des autres ne dialoguent pas nécessairement. Justement, l'interculturalité, peut-être par opposition à ce qu'on appelle par ailleurs le multiculturalisme, c'est la volonté, je dirais, politique au sens le plus large du terme, la volonté civique de faire dialoguer les cultures. Et les cultures ne dialoguent pas en quelque sorte naturellement. Il faut faire des efforts particuliers dans une société donnée ou dans une institution donnée, par exemple une institution d'enseignement supérieur, pour que les cultures puissent dialoguer les unes avec les autres. Ça suppose que de considérer les cultures en évitant deux écueils. Le premier écueil, c'est celui du culturalisme, c'est-à-dire l'écueil de culture qui serait en quelque sorte rigide et qui tente à enfermer chacun dans une culture supposée. Et puis, deuxième écueil, ce serait la crainte des différences. Et donc, il faut à la fois accepter les différences, accepter parfois des formes de cohabitation qui peuvent poser des difficultés dans l'espace public, et en même temps, ne pas rigidifier, ne pas osséifier les cultures en considérant qu'on ne veut pas, en quelque sorte, s'en échapper parce qu'on serait de telle ou telle origine. Et donc, on a cet effort qui fait de l'interculturalité un projet politique. Ce n'est pas une réalité en soi de notre monde, c'est un projet politique qu'il faut construire avec, bien entendu, de la volonté pour surmonter les obstacles, mais aussi du dialogue auprès de celles et ceux qui sont directement concernés, des associations, les acteurs locaux, ça peut être à l'échelle d'une société, les associations de migrants ou les représentants de tel ou tel pays ou région du monde dans un établissement d'éducation supérieure. Il y a un travail à faire parce que ça se gagne en quelque sorte. L'interculturalité, ça se construit, ça n'est pas un donné qui serait préexistant à la volonté politique et civique de celles et ceux qui y sont attachés. C'est aussi du côté français parfois une difficulté parce que nous avons eu parfois dans le passé un regard très assimilateur, hein, avec l'idée qu'il fallait en quelque sorte créer une culture commune, une culture de tous. Or, dans l'histoire de notre pays, il y a de grands écrivains, de grands créateurs qui ont, avec beaucoup d'opiniâtreté, développé cette idée d'une culture, de culture qui soit à la fois ouverte sur le monde, mais qui ne renie pas leurs apports uniques à l'histoire de l'humanité. Et en disant cela, je ne peux pas m'empêcher de penser à Aimé Césaire, le grand écrivain, le grand poète martiniquais, l'inventeur de la négritude ou le co-inventeur de la négritude, qui dans un texte célèbre de 1956, lorsqu'il annonce quitter le Parti communiste auquel il appartenait jusqu'à présent, Césaire dit, et c'est la fin de ce texte, « L'heure de nous-mêmes a sonné ». L'heure de nous-mêmes a sonné, ça veut dire qu'il revendique en quelque sorte une culture qui est une culture afro-antillaise, dont il est un représentant absolument merveilleux, mais dans la bouche de Césaire, ça n'est pas tourner le dos à la culture classique, celle qu'il a apprise lors de ses études à Paris. Il ne tourne pas le dos à l'apprentissage du latin ou bien du grec ancien ou bien des grands auteurs. Au contraire, il les saisit à bras le corps, en quelque sorte, pour les faire dialoguer avec ce dont il est lui-même issu. Césaire disait qu'il voulait à la fois lire le grec ancien et en même temps pouvoir comprendre sa grand-mère quand elle lui parlait en langue créole martiniquaise. Et c'est cela, au fond, le projet interculturel, c'est cette idée de conserver des particularités, des spécificités uniques aux cultures et qui contribuent, bien entendu, largement aux œuvres dont nous sommes les héritiers, et en même temps, bien sûr, les faire dialoguer avec le reste du monde, créer des convergences. Et en ce qui concerne la Martinique, chère à Césaire, et au-delà, l'espace caribéen, il voyait justement cet espace comme un espace qu'on pourrait aujourd'hui qualifier d'interculturel parce que ça a été un espace de rencontres parfois extrêmement violentes et même mortelles à certains égards entre des peuples, les Européens, les Africains, les populations amérindiennes. Dans la douleur, dans la violence, s'est construite une culture créole dont Césaire est le dépositaire. Alors, pour répondre donc d'un mot à la question que vous posiez, eh bien, je dirais l'interculturalité, c'est ce que dit Césaire, c'est à la fois l'heure de nous-mêmes qui a sonné, mais cette heure de nous-mêmes qui sonne, ça n'est évidemment pas une façon de tourner le dos au monde, c'est une façon d'embrasser le monde et de dire je suis fier de qui je suis et en même temps, je suis disposé à apprendre et à reconnaître en l'autre et en moi-même des parts communes.
Merci, monsieur l'ambassadeur. Alors justement, ce projet politique que vous abordez, comment cela se déroule-t-il auprès de la Commission européenne? Et si je peux passer la parole à Madame Valérie Drézé-Humez pour qu'elle puisse continuer cette conversation.
Effectivement, bonjour à tous. Je suis ravie d'être avec vous aujourd'hui. Je crois que pour faire suite à ce que disait Monsieur le ministre, il y a finalement, si je résumais un peu au niveau de l'Union européenne, notamment, c'est cette notion de vivre ensemble. Alors, vous connaissez tous la devise de l'Union européenne, unie dans la diversité. Donc, je dirais qu'en termes d'exemple d'interculturalité, on est vraiment au cœur, à la base, hein, dans les fondements. Peut-être un petit mot justement là aussi pour faire écho à ce qui a été dit au niveau des traités justement sur le fonctionnement de l'Union européenne. On voit bien cette dimension double, à la fois de renforcer les cultures existantes, qu'elles soient au niveau national ou même régional, et en même temps de développer cette unité de valeurs et de culture au niveau européen qui est très important. Vous avez cité en introduction parmi la raison d'être de la FEDE, la notion de démocratie. Alors, je ne peux pas m'empêcher de rappeler que le 9 juin, ce seront les élections au Parlement européen qui sont extrêmement importantes et vitales, et que dans finalement ces biens communs que nous avons au-delà des aspects culturels classiques auxquels on peut penser, et l'état de droit que vous avez aussi mentionné, il y a justement cette notion de démocratie, de participation et de travailler sur ce vivre ensemble. Donc au niveau européen, cette idée d'interculturalité, c'est à la fois un objectif et surtout pour développer d'autres moyens. Pareil, juste pour rappeler que l'objectif du projet européen, c'était la paix. Pendant un certain nombre d'années, on a considéré cela comme acquis et on a vu malheureusement depuis février 2022 que ce n'était plus le cas. Et donc, de revenir à ces fondamentaux, le dialogue, la façon de se comprendre, d'avoir des clés de compréhension mutuelle, c'est quelque chose qui est devenu, qui a pris son importance au fil des traités, et d'où ce soutien qui s'est affirmé, notamment depuis le traité de Maastricht de 92. Au niveau de l'Union européenne, on a, si vous savez peut-être, des années européennes. En 2008, c'est d'ailleurs l'année européenne du dialogue interculturel, donc pour voir aussi que c'est une dimension qui est importante depuis extrêmement longtemps. Alors, les soutiens se font à la fois, comme je le disais, pour la promotion de contenu, de valeurs, d'échanges, et on le retrouve aussi dans la façon de faire de la politique. C'est-à-dire que cet échange, cette perméabilité permanente avec les organisations non gouvernementales, avec l'industrie, toute personne intéressée finalement à la fabrique de la loi européenne est extrêmement consultée. On n'en parle pas beaucoup, on parle beaucoup vous connaissez le poncif traditionnel, Bruxelles a décidé, non, il n'y a pas de Bruxelles qui décide. La Commission, de son côté, fait des propositions et pour élaborer ces propositions, elle va énormément consulter. Donc là, on a aussi une espèce de traduction de cette volonté d'écouter, d'avoir une vue différente et d'être sûr que l'ensemble des angles qui peuvent concerner une question sont bien prises en compte. Donc ça, c'est quelque chose d'important à avoir en tête et je réinsiste sur cette notion aussi de bien commun finalement européen qui n'est pas exclusif mais qui est aussi important, qu'on retrouve dans cette promotion des valeurs, comme je le disais, la liberté des médias, l'importance de l'état de droit, de la démocratie, l'importance d'aller voter, de se faire entendre et aussi d'être capable de faire la part des choses, notamment vis-à-vis des ingérences étrangères, des sujets qui sont extrêmement d'actualité. Donc une vision un peu large, si je puis dire, que j'aurais sur l'interculturalité et le besoin d'avoir ces clés de compréhension. Si vous me permettez, pour rappeler ce que vous disiez aussi en introduction sur mon expérience personnelle, peut-être comment la vivre, ce qui est quelque chose de très intéressant, il faut savoir qu'à la Commission européenne, évidemment, l'ensemble des fonctionnaires représentent cette Union européenne dans son ensemble et donc représente l'ensemble des 27 maintenant États membres. Donc personnellement, par exemple, j'ai eu à gérer des équipes avec 14, 15 nationalités. Alors, ce n'est pas juste une question de passeport, mais chacun a un peu son background, ses écrivains, sa lecture de l'histoire. On l'a vu particulièrement avec l'invasion de l'Ukraine par la Russie. Et c'est extrêmement important d'avoir cet échange pour comprendre d'où chacun vient. Et c'est vrai que ça, on le retrouve dans la façon de travailler tous les jours, dans la façon de s'exprimer, dans la façon de prendre le temps d'écouter, de pondérer les différents angles de vue, comme je le disais, et ce qui fait aussi la richesse de cette démocratie extrêmement vivante qu'est l'Union européenne.
Je vous remercie beaucoup. Il est vrai que vous parlez des identités nationales et des identités, je dirais, identités culturelles et l'identité européenne. Et on le voit, ces élections européennes font ressurgir des vieux clivages. Alors, je passe tout de suite la parole à Monsieur l'ambassadeur de Suisse, la Fédé est suisse. Monsieur l'ambassadeur, vous faites tenir ensemble 3 cultures, la française, l'italienne, l'allemande, l'interculturalité et la Suisse. Je vous lance cette question.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la modératrice. J'espère que vous m'entendez bien. Je dirais même sur la Suisse, c'est 4 cultures. Hein. Vous avez oublié le romanche, c'est la 4e culture qui représente que 1%, mais elle est tout à fait intégrée. Tout d'abord, je dirais peut-être que, en parlant d'interculturalité, revenons à la base. L'interculturalité, c'est l'ouverture à l'autre. C'est un échange de perceptions et c'est un enrichissement mutuel. En effet, l'interculturalité, elle permet de passer du savoir sur l'autre, un savoir qui est souvent empreint de préjugés, donc d'erreurs, à la compréhension de l'autre. Et nous savons tous que la compréhension est évidemment bien plus profonde que le savoir. Plus qu'un élargissement de son propre horizon, on atteint par l'interculturalité un approfondissement de sa propre capacité à lire le monde, en identifiant également ses propres limites et contradictions, ce qui est essentiel pour une bonne analyse sur une situation donnée. Dans la diplomatie suisse, par exemple, la compétence interculturelle est particulièrement valorisée lors du recrutement des agents diplomatiques, car la première qualité d'un diplomate, c'est l'écoute. Sans écoute, pas d'apprentissage. Sans apprentissage, on garde ses œillères et ses préjugés et on risque de ne pas être en mesure de faire une analyse correcte des événements d'actualité qui vont impacter notre pays dans le futur au sein d'un monde multipolaire et multidimensionnel et face à de nouveaux défis globaux. Donc, l'immersion dans un contexte culturel différent, l'apprentissage des langues, une étude critique de l'histoire et de sa propre histoire, la revendication de la pluralité de l'information et des opinions, le respect des droits de l'homme sont les clés pour acquérir une solide compétence interculturelle. Nous l'avons dit, les composantes essentielles de l'interculturalité sont la tolérance et le respect. L'interculturalité vécue au quotidien doit être un ciment social qui est le résultat de politiques d'intégration et d'inclusion permettant un vivre ensemble, produisant paix et prospérité au sein d'une société humaine. Je dirais c'est la recette de succès de la Confédération suisse depuis qu'elle existe dans sa modernité en tant qu'État fédéral depuis le 19e siècle. La pluralité ne se décrète pas, elle se vit. Mais pour qu'elle soit bien vécue au niveau local, il faut qu'elle soit reconnue au plus haut niveau comme une vertu essentielle de l'harmonie sociétale nationale, laquelle est constitutive ensuite de la stabilité intérieure du pays. En Suisse, la Constitution dit dans son préambule, je cite, le peuple et les cantons suisses sont déterminés à vivre ensemble leur diversité dans le respect de l'autre et l'équité. Fin de citation. Dans son article 2, dédié au but de la Confédération suisse, la Constitution dit, je cite, la Confédération suisse favorise la prospérité commune, le développement durable, la cohésion interne et la diversité culturelle du pays. Fin de citation. On voit ici l'importance accordée à l'interculturalité dans l'identité même du pays. L'interculturalité, je poursuis, en affirmant que c'est un élément constitutif d'une vraie démocratie. Le Conseil de l'Europe, où je suis accrédité, gardien de la démocratie sur notre continent, en est conscient et veut développer une nouvelle ingénierie pour lutter contre l'érosion démocratique que l'on observe avec la montée du populisme au sein de nos sociétés. Le populisme, nous le savons que trop bien en Europe, sert le terrain de l'isolationnisme et du nationalisme qui prône l'exclusion de l'autre, ce qui est l'antithèse de l'interculturalité et qui, in fine, mène à la division sociétale, voire à la guerre. Dans les principes du Conseil de l'Europe pour la démocratie, adoptés en 2023, il est notamment dit, je cite, il conviendra en priorité de favoriser la participation des jeunes à la vie démocratique et au processus décisionnel, notamment grâce à des initiatives d'éducation aux droits de l'homme et aux valeurs fondamentales que sont, entre autres, le pluralisme, l'inclusion, la non-discrimination, la transparence et la responsabilité. Fin de citation. Tous ces éléments, vous en conviendrez, sont constitutifs de l'interculturalité qui a donc une place de choix dans la réponse que le Conseil de l'Europe veut donner pour lutter contre l'érosion démocratique en Europe et dans le monde. Je terminerai en affirmant que la vraie démocratie au sein d'une nation, c'est l'unité par la diversité et non pas l'unité par l'uniformité. L'interculturalité au sein d'une nation et l'interculturalité entre nations sont toutes deux garantes de la paix. C'est pourquoi nous devons les promouvoir. Je vous remercie.
Je vous remercie beaucoup de cette parole très sage de la Suisse, mais on n'en attend jamais moins de la Suisse, qui est un modèle de sagesse. Madame Tanja Gandkrup, pour les Pays-Bas, votre regard sur l'interculturalité.
Bonjour, oui, excusez-moi. Moi, je vais parler en anglais si ça cause pas de problème, c'est plus facile pour moi. So, good afternoon. Thank you so much for this initiative. It's very interesting to take the floor after my very eloquent colleagues who have been explaining this topic. And I think I will jump from this context into a very practical one. And I wanted to make 2 points, which are already made by my colleagues, but I will shed some light on them from a different perspective. And the first point is below the surface, I would call it. And the second point would be self-reflection and maybe even self-criticism. And these are exactly the 2 points that my colleague Claude also made. He called them savoir and compréhension. And he also mentioned that you have to know your own history, but also your own situation and limits. So it has already been mentioned, but I'll just explain why I chose these 2 in the context of this important topic. And they actually stem from my own experience as living in other countries. I mentioned the first one, below the surface. It's not always easy to work with different people. I'm not even saying different cultures, just different people with different characteristics, different way of thinking, different way of working. But it becomes a little bit more complex, to be honest. When you work with people from different cultures. And I say complex, but in a positive sense of the word, because it is enriching. It has already been mentioned, but it definitely is. Below the surface, the first point comes from my own experience while engaging with my colleagues from different countries. And the specific example comes from the time when I just arrived in Colombo, in Sri Lanka, where I was ambassador before coming to Strasbourg. And I had an idea. Well, maybe I was there for about a year, and I had an idea. I thought it was a brilliant idea. So I went with my colleagues. I sat down and I said, okay, let's do it like this. And then my Dutch colleague said, yeah, great idea. And my colleagues from Sri Lanka, they looked at me and are like, but they didn't dare saying anything, because the hierarchy there says that you will not go against your ambassador. But when I saw them sitting like this and moving a bit up and down and being a bit insecure, I started to ask questions. And I said, well, tell me, what do you think? And then at a certain point, they said, well, I don't think this is a good idea. And I was a bit annoyed, because I still thought it was a great idea. And then I asked why, but I didn't really get an answer. So I decided not to just decide that we were going to do it. I decided to wait for a week. And in that week, I asked individual colleagues, what do you think of it? Why do you like it? Or why don't you like it? And then first they just said in the meeting, well, this is not the way we do things here. And well, they're often, I'm not very impressed by that. I mean, if we would have accepted the way we did things 20 years ago, I would not be sitting here as a woman, as a female ambassador. So this doesn't stop me, these kinds of sentences. But then, during the week, I engaged with my colleagues, and then I had started to understand why they didn't like the idea. And there was something behind it. It was not just because they didn't do things that way in Sri Lanka, but there were all kinds of other things that happened in the past, and other ideas, and other how you engage with each other. And this is what I mean with below the surface. So the surface might be, they think, oh, these are these very active, strange Dutch ideas. My idea might be, oh, they don't want to do this because this is too creative, or I might have other biases that come into it. They might be unconscious, they might be conscious, but we all have, like in this first instance, a vision why people take a certain position. But then when you go beyond or below the surface, you will understand the reasons, or at least you will hear the reasons. You have to listen, as my colleague said. You have to engage, you have to have this dialogue to understand, why is this person taking this position, and why is that person taking that position. And when you start to go under that surface, you might not just understand each other better, but you might also find a way to move forward. And you might find a way, and I found out mostly I found a way to move forward together. And that is the most important part. And then I also had to admit that my plan got better, because we adapted it it was probably more effective, maybe it was more efficient, maybe it always got better. But it takes quite some energy and time. And also, and that was my second point, some self-reflection and even maybe some self-criticism. If we are not willing to look at ourselves and our own ways of doing things, it's very difficult to change and to admit that maybe sometimes doing things in a different way is more effective and even better, or people will recognize themselves more, and people will enjoy it more. And that is maybe my other short, look at the time, very short example on the self-reflection. This is also an example from my time in Sri Lanka, and it has to do with know your own history. The Dutch have been in Sri Lanka during the colonial period for 150 years. Before the British came and after the Portuguese were there. We were all there for about 150 years, and we all had different ways of ruling the country. And we were doing that more from a trade perspective, but also in a very difficult and cruel sense often. This is something we are finding more and more about. Well, there's more and more research about it, but we also start to more and more acknowledge that. On the other hand, in Sri Lanka, this Dutch period, as they call it, is very much romanticized because we built a lot of buildings in those times. We brought the Roman Dutch law. There are other Dutch elements, and this is part of their more romantic idea of their country. And but often when we would talk about this architecture and other colonial elements, I would always say, well, we have to admit that there was also a black page. Or a black side or very dark side to that part of the history. And well, then we would shortly talk about that. And then my Sri Lankan colleagues would say after that, Ambassador, why do you do that? Why do you say that? If they don't mention it, why would you mention it? And I said, well, listen, if we want to have a real conversation, if we want to engage in a real dialogue, also about the challenges that we have today between our countries and in our countries, we have to be open about our own history and the lessons that we also learned ourselves. So that is the self-reflection and self-criticism. So thank you very much. These are very quickly a few of my lessons, some hard lessons taught.
Well, it was brilliant. And comme vous l'avez dit, il faut parfois, quand on avance vers l'autre, savoir faire un pas de côté. Et ce pas de côté permet aussi de revenir et d'avancer toujours mieux. Je vais retourner, continuer avec ce tour européen avec un ancien ambassadeur, Ulia Talichka, qui n'est plus ambassadeur, mais qui est un écrivain et cinéaste. C'est Ulia Talichka pour l'Albanie. Uliette.
Bonjour, merci. Tout est vrai ce que tu viens de dire, Claude. Je suis l'ancien. Ça marche la voix, le son? Ah oui, ça marche. Ça marche parce que je suis en train de travailler avec mon mobile vu que mon ordinateur ne fonctionne pas. Mais I'm going to just to tackle the subject you already in English. I would prefer, because my lessons are in English, and I would prefer to continue in English this subject. Before starting, I should like to emphasize an element of the FEDE. Really, FEDE, which organized this kind of webinar, correspond in her natural status, a real think tank for new ideas. A real place of innovative experience and inspiring concepts until now in this kind of, especially mainly focus on education as democratic value and intercultural approach. Anyway, just to come to the subject, I should like to, let's say, to raise two problems. Why we celebrate why the society is conditioned to celebrate these days of interculturality, the diversity, because there are problems. If not, we are not engaged in this debate. In concrete terms, which are problems which of concerns at our Peninsula Balkans level. Unfortunately, the cultural diversity, which let's say in a more global world or in European level, for example, are links or bridge of communication of peace, democracy, and the rule of law. In Balkans, usually this myths, this diversity, cultural diversity, was the origin of conflicts. The events on Western Balkan with widespread, with sometimes ethnic cleansing, origin of conflicts, and not an diversity in itself. In terms of education, instead of conflicts, origin could be it's a very good asset of education. Pedagogically speaking, could be not only the general value of intercultural diversity and interculturality, but as an origin of conflict, but could be a really, from didactic point of view, it's a very good asset of education to respect each other in diversity. So what I am saying for the Western Balkan areas, I'm referring even recent report of UNESCO, if I'm not wrong. It stated that it concludes that 85, more or less 85% of the conflicts in the world are originated from conflicts of diversity, cultural diversity, which it means that it's a problem to be tackled and to be usually in the reports of, let's say, of international level, international institute, as a most fundamental question. Sometimes in documents, we see that this problem of interculturality or multicultural and multiculturality and interculturality is often overloaded by politicians and policy makers, in whose culture is embraced by the notion of cultural Europe. So the mainstream is cultural Europe cultural values, and not with no extent, not kind of extent to refer to migrant minorities, those who are suffering social exclusion, such as refugees and displaced peoples. Albania, in our case, now is a country of migration, and really these are sensitive issues to be tackled of even by the level of policy makers and in international institutions. In my opinion, personal opinion, in coming year of the society, race, roots, cultural diversity, and history will not so strong ambition to enforce an identity. We are now in the future. We have to choose within broad limits set especially by economic realities, ecological realities, political realities. In doing so, we move towards transforming the concept of diversity into a pedagogical asset, rather a problem to be solved. Because why? This culture, interculturality, which is the natural link of education, which is, in fact, the education is not preparing for the reality, but it's the reality itself. In other terms, it is not merely a cognitive process, but as intertwined with multiple aspects of development, including identity and emotion, which elements, factors of culture. Which are the problems actual communities are faced with, which are the main problems or the dilemmas and challenges immigrants, displaced peoples are facing in their realities. There are three alternatives. The first is segregation, which we find in several European communities, including Albanians, Turks, which are Africans, Maghrebians. Sometimes they are married with each other. They try to keep the origin language communication for their children, etc. And the first step, of course, it's the second could be the assimilation, which many families, from my experience, prefer to be assimilated their own children the mainstream culture. Why? Because that they could succeed in the life in the future. I have experienced some families, let's say a Polish family in France, and they said to me that we do not speak Polish more at home because I want that my children to be assimilated as quick as possible. That is not the best way of respecting diversity. And which is the third alternative. The third alternative, integration. Integration, the concept of interculturality, respecting and taking the best of each other. I don't think that there is a hierarchy of culture. No, there are not high level culture and subculture. The culture in itself are independent with their own particularity and with their values. And the approach should be just to take the best of its culture of each other. And I will finish with that. Albania could have offered to the, let's say, mosaic or panorama of European values, the religion tolerance, the coexistence of peoples with different faiths, which is a good model, a positive model we can export with to the panorama of European values. Thank you, Claude.
Merci beaucoup, Juliette. Finalement, la question, lorsqu'on est un petit pays et qu'on a une langue qui n'est pas une langue parlée par beaucoup de personnes au monde, ne doit-on pas, est-ce que cela ne renforce pas ce désir d'aller vers l'autre? Alors, je vais me tourner vers Andrius Kriva de la Lituanie. L'interculturalité, cette question linguistique, qu'est-ce que vous auriez à nous dire sur ce sujet?
Merci beaucoup, Madame la modératrice. It is a privilege to be here and I appreciate the opportunity and I wish everyone a happy World Day of Cultural Diversity. Unfortunately, we don't have time to deeply analyze what is culture or its complex relationship and mutual influences with civilization, government, and politics. By the way, including human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. But the basic sources or components of culture are more or less clear. Language, religion, lore, as in folklore, historic experience, art and literature, manners and customs, traditions, social conventions, taboos, material and non-tangible heritage. Culture is marked by important characteristics. First of all, it is an essential part of personal and communal identity. And culture is inherently and exclusively human. It does not exist outside human society and outside the persons who carry culture or study it. The same individual shares the different cultural parameters with different communities. I mean, religious characteristics are shared with some, linguistic with others, level of education or tastes in music with still others, which means that no two persons in the world have 100% identical cultural profile, and probably every person in the world belongs to more than one cultural community. Let's remember that cultures undergo evolution and development, and they interact among themselves and influence, enrich, and inspire one another. Whether national, religious, linguistic cultures coexist and closely interact, wherever they coexist and interact, an overarching, shared, general or quasi-universal cosmopolitan culture tends to develop. This enables us to speak of European culture or American culture or even world cultural heritage. By the way, the European Cultural Convention aims at enhancing and empowering a European culture by promoting the study of languages and broader cultures of other member states of the Council of Europe. Different cultures coexisting and interacting in one geographic area present both risks and opportunities. I will not analyze them all, but just mention the biggest risk. In my opinion, the biggest one is the formation of an enemy image that is associated within one culture to other cultures. Eventually, this leads to enmity, hate speech, violence, and conflict between communities based on different cultures. What are the sources of that enemy image? In my opinion, those are bias, prejudice, stereotype, but often also cheap political manipulation, for example, through propaganda and misinformation, which is, among other things, part of Putin's tactics against Ukraine, but also employed by many other aggressors and dictators. And among the opportunities, the most important one, in my opinion, is that if different cultures within one society feed their comparative strengths and advantages into that overarching general culture, cosmopolitan culture, it can powerfully boost political and social development, internal stability, and prosperity. The big challenge is therefore how to mitigate the risks and how to bring the advantages to fruition. The intercultural interaction has always accompanied human history and tested all models from mutual approximation and fusion through voluntary or forcible assimilation, all the way to total mutual rejection, war, and annihilation. The challenge and the necessity of intercultural interaction today is reinforced by the global migration, whereas sizable cultural communities move outside their traditional geographic areas, and by the spread and dynamic progress of modern information technologies. Today, different cultures meet and interact also in cyberspace, which accelerates the ongoing globalization of culture. Yet, specific cultures should not succumb to the cosmopolitan universal culture or dissolve in it. Each of those cultures is part of a global ecosystem of human spirit, and they should therefore be protected very much for reasons for which we protect rare species in nature. Existence of many different cultures offers spiritual and intellectual diversity for all individuals to choose from and to draw wisdom and understanding of the world. Besides, cultural identities are not only about sharing goals and beliefs with other people living in the same place or at the same time as ourselves. It is also about the vertical connections of commonality and inheritance through generation to one's ancestors and to one's posterity. What conclusions does this bring me to? First of all, intercultural dialogue is fundamentally important, whereas remedies like fight against discrimination and hate speech or conflict resolution merely mitigate symptoms. The intercultural dialogue has the potential to address the very deep root causes of some, though not all, I must underline that, of the most difficult problems plaguing humanity. It is not enough to instill tolerance between different cultural communities. They should not merely tolerate, but they should accept and embrace each other. How to achieve that? I see three key elements: respect, education, and use. Regarding respect, each cultural community must respect others as their equals, and none should cherish the view that it is in any way superior to others. The respect should reach as far as to allow any individual to choose and modify their cultural identity, and even to respectfully quit, if they so desire, any culture, including their native one. Such respect is inviting to inclusion and civic participation by all cultural groups, including vulnerable minorities. Education is enormously important. It must encompass interculturality. It should, where appropriate, avoid cultural segregation in schools and encourage intercultural curiosity, familiarization, and understanding. It's an open question, however, how far national education establishments are in a position on their own to develop the necessary effective public education programs to that end. I think an important supporting, or in many instances even leading role should be played on a global level by organizations like UNESCO and on the regional level like the Council of Europe. In this context, initiatives like Alliance of Civilizations, Interreligious Dialogue, North-South Center of the Council of Europe, but also regional and global research and education networks like FEDE, but also others, have a potential to make an important contribution. Last but not least, such education should rely on the use of modern IT technology and draw teaching resources from well beyond national borders. And last but not least, about youth. It is to the children and young adults still free of preconceived notions and stereotypes that intercultural exchange and education programs should be primarily addressed. At the end of the day, it is today's youth that tomorrow will either enjoy the fruit of interculturality or suffer from the lack of it. That is why the commencing Lithuanian presidency of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe has included cultural diversity and heritage among its priorities. And together with Luxembourg and Malta, we also agreed to promote our shared European identity and culture, as well as youth involvement as part of common priority areas of our 3 subsequent presidencies. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. And well, now I will go to UNESCO et je vais passer la parole à 2 pays et nous aurons fini notre premier tour de table pour faire un petit wrap-up. Je vais passer la parole à la Mongolie et ensuite au Nigeria. La Mongolie et le Nigeria sont tous 2 auprès de l'UNESCO, ambassadrices auprès de l'UNESCO, et ça me fait plaisir de pouvoir conclure cette première partie du dialogue avec 2 femmes ambassadrices. Donc, je passe la parole à la Mongolie.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente, la modératrice et Excellences, chères Mesdames et Messieurs, chers participants. Donc, c'est un privilège pour moi d'être invitée à ce webinaire à l'occasion de la Journée mondiale pour le dialogue interculturel. Et donc, c'est un thème important. Donc, je m'aligne à tout ce qui a été dit par mes prédécesseurs. Et je souhaite plutôt, comme il y a la Fédération européenne des écoles, le Conseil de l'Europe, et aussi les représentants des pays francophones et le monde d'éducation, d'enseignement, d'établissement d'enseignement, je souhaite plutôt parler d'une problématique que nous, les Mongols, que moi-même, j'expérimente en termes d'interculturalité. C'est donc la dimension linguistique est très importante dans une meilleure compréhension des relations interculturelles. Vous savez, ça fait uniquement plus de 30 ans que la Mongolie s'est ouverte à la démocratie et s'est ouverte à l'économie de marché et donc est un jeune pays de démocratie dont aussi beaucoup de jeunes sont partis faire les études en Occident, aux États-Unis et en Angleterre, au Japon, etc., dont je fais partie de cette génération. Et quand je suis arrivée en France, donc je rencontrais souvent ce problème linguistique en français, le terme du mot mongol, utilisé malheureusement dans une connotation péjorative qui est associée au sens idiot, aussi au sens de la classification de la maladie trisomie 21. Donc au XVIIIe siècle, le physicien britannique John Landon Down a basé cette classification, a classé les personnes atteintes de la trisomie 21 sur sa conviction que ces gens atteintes de la maladie partageaient les caractéristiques faciales, les yeux bridés, tout ça. Donc, cette classification ethnique et que depuis en Occident et aussi dans dans la langue française, donc a eu malheureusement cet usage péjoratif. Et donc, je rencontre souvent les gens me posaient d'où venez-vous, de quelle origine vous êtes. Donc, j'évitais d'y répondre par la phrase je suis mongole. Parce que je voulais toujours, j'ai dû corriger les Français et Françaises, les étrangers qui disaient mongolien. Ah, vous êtes mongolien, vous êtes mongolienne. Donc ça, ce terme, je devais me battre pour leur expliquer l'adjectif mongol, ça a un rapport, ça se désigne, ça qualifie le peuple mongol, la Mongolie, la langue mongole, l'histoire mongole, la culture mongole. Donc aujourd'hui, dans une société multiculturelle, multiethnique, multireligieuse comme la France, on a encore cette mauvaise usage, cette mauvaise compréhension de ce terme. Alors, depuis les années 1960, les Nations Unies et l'Organisation mondiale de la santé se sont battus, font des efforts pour éradiquer, pour abolir l'usage de ce terme dans le sens péjoratif. Et d'ailleurs, la langue anglaise a déjà aboli cette connotation offensive dans le dictionnaire Oxford. Donc, on a vécu une époque, il y a très récemment, il y a 2 ans, en 2021, en 3 ans, en 2021, dans la chanson du célèbre rappeur français Oralson, dans sa chanson L'odeur de l'essence. Donc, il avait utilisé le mot mongol, l'empire mongol, au sens de cette connotation péjorative. Donc, la communauté mongole vivant dans les pays francophones, vivant en France, nous avons été très déçus et enfin atteintes par cet usage en français. Et donc, je pense que ça porte atteinte à l'identité de la nation, à l'identité culturelle. Et donc, je pense que c'est très important que nous battions ensemble pour faire comprendre aux élèves, aux étudiants, aux adultes parlant français, parlant cette belle langue de Victor Hugo, cette belle langue riche, de faire comprendre que cet usage du sens du terme mongol dans le sens péjoratif ne doit pas exister et ne doit plus être utilisé. Donc, comme il y a la Fédération européenne des écoles et aussi le Conseil de l'Europe, les représentants des pays francophones, donc je souhaite aussi les solliciter, leur attention et leur coopération en termes de leur programme ou voilà, de clarification sur cette dimension linguistique pour que nous puissions respecter l'identité de chacun et chacune. Voilà, donc voilà, c'est de ce que mon expérience personnelle et de ce que aussi les communautés mongoles vivant dans les pays francophones, donc je voulais souligner ce piège des stéréotypes et donc voilà. J'espère que cette journée mondiale de l'interculturalité, par nos échanges avec ce webinaire, se réussira. Et merci beaucoup de votre attention.
Merci beaucoup, Madame, pour ce témoignage extrêmement émouvant et qui nous frappe particulièrement, nous, la communauté francophone, parce qu'on ne mesure pas la portée des mots. Et c'est vrai que ce terme a une connotation, maintenant que vous le dites de cette façon si poignante, ça nous renvoie, nous, à beaucoup de jugements que l'on a, et je suis vraiment, votre témoignage est très important sur voilà, cette question d'interculturalité. Je vais passer la parole au Nigeria. Votre Excellence, l'interculturalité en dehors justement de l'Europe, on a vu avec la Mongolie et avec le Nigeria maintenant, comment vous la vivez, comment elle s'exprime et quel est votre combat peut-être militant, comme nous venons de le voir avec la Mongolie, sur cette question-là très essentielle au sein de l'UNESCO?
Thank you very much, Claudia. And I want to start by thanking you for inviting me to be part of this very important discussion and on the interculturality within the sphere of multilateral diplomacy, where I currently function as ambassador and permanent delegate of Nigeria to UNESCO. I'm speaking in English. And I believe those who have spoken before me has already given definitions and description of what interculturality is all about. But for emphasis, I will quote UNESCO in its description of interculturality as a dynamic concept referring to evolving relationship between different cultural groups. That is existence, equitable interaction of diverse cultures, and possibility of generating shared cultural expressions through dialogue and mutual respect. This is different from the term multiculturality, which describes the cultural diverse nature of human society. Interculturality, therefore, proposes a multiculturalism, which results from intercultural exchange and dialogue on local, it can be on local, on national, on regional, also at international level. Multiculturalism is a setting, that is a background where we find cultural diverse nature of human society. Interculturalism, therefore, as we keep on saying, proposes multiculturalism and results from intercultural exchange, like I said earlier, and which gives a kind of background whereby multiculturalism will now come to navigate a setting. In my experience, multicultural diplomatic setting is naturally a multicultural environment. And the fact where we are about 193 member states at different levels of UNESCO, as in permanent delegates in UNESCO, as well as international civil servants of diverse culture, traditional background, speaking different languages, establishes this natural setting. The reality, therefore, is that as a diplomat and ambassador within this setting, the practice of interculturality is a daily routine, which we do every day, meeting people, dialoguing, talking, discussing, even people from different tradition, background, languages, and within that setting. And as such, whereby one must learn the intrigues of dealing with diversity of the background. That is the culture, the tradition, the languages, as well as the sensitivities that go with it. A lot of attention has been given to the impact of cultural diversity in diplomatic relations. It is a well-known fact that diplomats are instructed to be very familiar with the environment, the country they are posted to. So, so that they will be able, because there are different cultures, and in order to be able to converse and interact with the local counterparts within their posting area and the population in general that do not threaten the sensitivities. This is important because cultural shocks are real, depending on the diplomat's own culture and where they are coming from. This is so in bilateral diplomatic setting and could even become more complicated in a multilateral diplomatic setting, leading, working, attending meetings of international conferences or deliberative organs of international organizations, details multicultural interaction, which makes it no longer just a matter of not hurting sensitivity, but a need to be very careful with meanings of words, your gesture, your mannerism, where concept could be uncertain because of multiplicity of cultures involved. Yet, as diplomats, there is always a need to agree, to adopt, to rectify decisions together and speaking with one voice despite the diversity. In my 3 years working with UNESCO headquarters, having been a member and headed some intergovernmental committees, I can say that with translation and interpretation of language have been provided for the ease of mutual understanding, which solve a large part of the mutual comprehension. The real gameplay of interculturality for me has been the need to grapple with soft language of hidden meanings or words, of the gesture, of the mannerism, and the remaining sensitive to the understanding of others, even while disagreeing with them. Coming from Nigeria, with more than 200 million people and more than 300 ethnic groups and over 500 languages and many distinct religious and regional differences, we have one of the world's most culturally diverse countries living in Nigeria, particularly with internal mobility. One has been used to practice of interculturality from the northern part of the country to the southern part of the country to the western part of the country. Nigerian citizens interact with each other of different religious background, language, understanding on a daily basis. I give a practical example. We are here in UNESCO. I work with my colleagues who are Nigerians. We are from the same country, but surprisingly, they have different language. I have my different language. We only communicate in English. So you can imagine the diversity of language in Nigeria. And therefore, this experience is a form of leverage for me, even at international level. My training as a classroom teacher and once a minister of women affairs and a gender advocate in a culturally diverse country like Nigeria have partly provided me for my current role, what I'm doing here. And in my previous position, I have had deal with many sensitive situations related to culture, related to religion, related to language, and that are so sensitive. Some so sensitive that form is convey, however sensitive to people of different culture at national and international level as well, when we attend meetings, especially at the United Nations, and presently, as I'm here in UNESCO, and understanding the psychology and emotional needs. To strengthen peaceful coexistence, UNESCO recommends that education system need to take into account the multicultural character of the society and aim at actively contributing to peaceful coexistence and positive interaction between different cultural groups. There are two approaches to this. One, multicultural education. Second, intercultural education. While multicultural education uses learning about other culture in order to produce acceptance or at least tolerance, tolerance of this at least tolerance of this culture, intercultural education aims to go beyond passive existence to achieve a developing and sustainable way of living together in culturally society through the creation of understanding of and respect for dialogue between the different cultural groups. In my opinion, both multicultural and intercultural education must form a core part of the curriculum of global citizenship education in the age of sustainable development. Often, the focus of multiculturalism is to acknowledge presence of multiple cultural groups living side by side, with emphasis on coexistence and tolerance, while the concept of interculturality moves deeper, strengthens the relationship. Interculturality includes dynamic, evolving relationship between groups that include exchange and dialogue. This is the more reason why both multiculturalism, interculturality have been evaluated from the potential to emphasize coexistence while failing to address the issue of inequality and the power differential between cultural groups. To take care of this, interculturalism education is important to equip students with skills to see beyond coexistence and regard interaction as a means of achieving inclusion, equity, mutual understanding, and international dialogue for an early age. This is my humble contribution. And I want to say that I'm happy to be part of this webinar. And also I believe that these fruitful exchanges we are having now is just a good starting point. I want once again to thank Ms. Claudia and other organizers for finding me worthy to participate in these very important exchanges, which right from the beginning I've learned a lot. And also I believe the little I have provided as input will also be useful and contribute meaningfully to the outcome of this very important event. And I thank the organizer, I say, for sharing, and also I appreciate everybody for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you really very much. And I think that you said that the ambassadors are well educated to interculturality. Therefore, I would suggest that this day for interculturality should maybe switch to a day with ambassadors as teachers doing maybe 1 hour in all the schools all over the world.
This will be a good suggestion, and that is why I also believe that it should be a core part of the curriculum for citizenship, and I will prepare the younger generation to always understand the meaning of interculturality and also multiculturalism, because these are very important, and it will prepare them to be able to live in a station or a society like my country, Nigeria, that is multi-ethnic, multi-religious, and also multi-traditional society. I think is the most in the history of interculturalism, interculturality, because as I said, you find even in my place that I stay, in the capital of Nigeria, Abuja, many people from different culture, tradition background. We go to the market, we don't speak one language as our cultural language. No, we speak English as the only medium of communication between us. So you can see the diversity. You see, even my family now, I'm struggling to make sure my children should not learn only English, they must learn my local language. There will be a time it's going to be useful for us, for me to speak with them and feel that, yes, we have a culture and we must preserve it. It's very important. But once they are not able to speak in my language and we all speak English, which is a foreign language for me, then to me, it is not, I did not do anything that will help my children to see the value of my culture, especially the language. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And as you say that interculturality is a practice daily routine. I go to Ukraine now, and I don't know if you speak English or French. I will switch to French like it is my native language, and I want to speak French. Donc, comment cela se passe de retour en Europe dans un pays où vous êtes en conflit? Il y a un conflit. Certains disent, voilà, disent qu'il ne faut pas dire le mot guerre, donc je reste sur le terme conflit. Donc cette pratique de l'interculturalité au quotidien, comment cela se passe et quel est le ressenti du côté de l'Ukraine?
Merci beaucoup, Madame modératrice. Et c'est plus correctement, si je peux dire, d'utiliser le terme la guerre ou l'agression. Merci. Et thank you for giving me floor. As we gather to discuss the vital topic of intercultural dialogue, we are actually aware of its heightened importance in the context of the unprecedented and full-scale Russian war of aggression against Ukraine. This aggression has not only brought devastation to our land, but has also underscored the urgent need for fostering inclusion and building peace through mutual understanding and respect among diverse cultures. In these challenging times, the role of intercultural dialogue cannot be overstated. It's crucial for several reasons. As UNESCO highlights, conflicts often erupt where intercultural dialogue is absent. Strengthening these dialogues can help reduce misunderstandings and promote peaceful coexistence. In Ukraine, the solidarity and support from various cultures around the world have been a beacon of hope, demonstrating that unity in diversity can resist aggression and foster resilience. Intercultural dialogue nurtures essential citizenship skills such as empathy, tolerance, and mutual respect. These skills are the bedrock of democratic society and are indispensable for the long-term stability and development of Ukraine. The lack of cultural diversity and dialogue with Russia has contributed to its aggressive behavior. A society that does not value or understand different cultures is more prone to xenophobia and militarism. In contrast, promoting intercultural dialogue in Ukraine and beyond can counteract these tendencies by fostering a culture of peace and mutual respect. In our interconnected world, multilingualism and intercultural competencies are invaluable. They open doors to new opportunities and facilitate international cooperation. For Ukraine, embracing these skills means empowering our people to engage more effectively on the global stage, driving economic growth and innovation. The digital age offers unprecedented opportunities to promote intercultural dialogue. Through various platforms, we can share our stories, learn from the others, and build networks of support and solidarity. In conclusion, the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine has starkly revealed the necessity of intercultural dialogue in building peace and fostering inclusion. As representatives of Ukraine, we call upon the international community to strengthen these dialogues, support educational initiatives, and work together to create a world where diversity is celebrated and peace is a shared reality. Thank you so much.
Merci beaucoup de ce témoignage. Vous êtes actuellement, où êtes-vous en ce moment?
Je suis dans la représentation permanente de l'Ukraine auprès du Conseil de l'Europe Malheureusement, monsieur l'ambassadeur est absent aujourd'hui et il m'a délégué d'intervenir aujourd'hui. Et pour le moment, je suis à Strasbourg et comme
Voilà,
ça,
donc
je peux partager à vous nos idées à propos de
vous apporterez tout notre soutien à vos concitoyens en Ukraine de la part de toute la Fédé. Alors, je
Merci.
vous remercie. Je vais me tourner vers la Belgique. Jean-Cédric, est-ce que vous êtes connecté? Jean-Cédric Janssen de Bistoven, est-ce que vous êtes connecté? Sinon, parce que je vois son nom, sinon, je vais passer la parole à Paula Alves de Souza, puisque je vois votre vidéo. Donc, je vais continuer avec le Brésil. Donc, le Brésil, comment se vit l'interculturalité? Et peut-être une question, comment la favoriser? Puisqu'on est tous, il semble qu'il y ait un consensus sur l'importance de cette interculturalité. Mais peut-être, comment la favoriser, l'interculturalité, du point de vue du Brésil?
Alors, très bien. Vous m'écoutez bien?
Parfaitement.
Très, très bien. Bon, je vais faire ma présentation en anglais. Donc, c'est plus facile. De toute façon, merci beaucoup pour l'invitation. C'est vraiment pour moi un plaisir d'être ici. Maintenant, je vais changer pour l'anglais. It is a pleasure to speak to you today about the fundamental topic of cultural diversity and intercultural dialogue. Promoting cultural diversity as a universal value, a foundation for a more plural, peaceful, and democratic world is recent. UNESCO adopted its Convention on Cultural Diversity only in 2005. Cultural diversity enriches human experience and promotes development and peace. The world you are helping to build, you young people, is increasingly leads diversity and dialogue. However, these dimensions are under threat. Globalization, while bringing us closer, tends to impose hegemonic cultural models on communities. The erasure of cultural differences diminish our ability to live in plurality and imagine solutions to major challenges like climate change. A more homogeneous and culturally impoverished world could become less creative, affecting science, knowledge, and human rights. Forgetfulness also is a major threat to interculturality. This is why we, Brazil, attach great importance to UNESCO's programs like the Memory of the World and the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. In Brazil, although Portuguese is the main language, over 270 spoken indigenous languages have enriched Brazilian Portuguese in the course of centuries, and many of them are at risk. In recent years, indigenous peoples organizations and the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples are working to recover these languages, which are seen not only as a means of communication, as a set of grammar rules or phonetics, but as living organisms with memory and soul. In times of artificial intelligence, we must ensure new technologies serve diversity and dialogue, not uniformity, stereotypes, and xenophobia. This is not simple. We need institutional mechanisms to promote diversity as a value. Without it, the idea of respecting differences and mutual enrichment through cultural encounters become empty. Interculturality in Brazil means promoting dialogue between the different cultures that shaped us. This dialogue requires memory. Valuing traditions means what we do not forget their origins, the violence they suffered, and the challenges of building an equal society, including gender equality. Intercultural dialogue also needs promotion. UNESCO has initiatives to practice interculturality as a space for peace building. This is why we are supporting in UNESCO a variety of initiatives, such as the programs to bringing together Arab and Latin American communities and promoting the cultures of indigenous peoples. These are permanent concerns of Brazilian cultural diplomacy. They guide our approach to African countries, to programs like the Root of Enslaved Peoples implemented by UNESCO, the promotion of multilingualism, and the fight against racism and intolerance. We also work hard to promote our cultural expressions as key drivers for sustainable development. I am convinced that diplomacy has a central role in promoting diversity and dialogue between cultures. After all, diplomacy itself is an intercultural practice. To promote understanding, we need not only to look at different interests, but also to see, feel, taste, experience the world from different perspectives. Moreover, culture is the bridge that can make this happen. So thank you very much again for inviting me or being part of this event today. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais demander à messieurs et mesdames les ambassadeurs, lorsque vous souhaitez prendre la parole, que vous puissiez mettre votre caméra, parce que je ne sais pas toujours si vous êtes derrière la caméra. Donc voilà. Et Madame l'ambassadrice du Brésil, je vous remercie pour cette insistance que vous avez faite sur les aspects culturels. Alors, je vais aller du côté du Japon et ensuite nous irons à Monaco. Donc, du côté du Japon, je continue en français. Monsieur Kano, comment développer et favoriser cette interculturalité?
Merci, Madame, votre invitation. C'est très intéressante. Réunion intéressante. Je suis très heureux et honoré d'assister à cette réunion. Mais permettez-moi de continuer en anglais parce que français, je suis encore en train d'apprendre le français comme la deuxième langue étrangère. Alors, permettez de continuer en anglais. Thank you, Madam, for this opportunity. And first of all, I welcome the initiative of this FEDE, Federation of European Education, in organizing this webinar, and thank them for inviting me. I'm delighted that many fellow ambassadors from the Council of Europe, UNESCO, and other organizations will participate in this webinar to exchange views on the importance of cultural diversity. UNESCO, as you know, has a long mandate to promote culture, education, science, and technology, and sport. Japan has long been promoting various initiatives in each of these fields that contribute to social diversity. Today, I'd like to touch upon measures for the promotion of diversity and intercultural exchange based on our own experience. First, culture. Culture is a global public good and a powerful tool for promoting the realization of sustainable societies. In Japan, the basic law on culture and the arts states that culture and the arts promote mutual understanding among people, creating a society that embraces diversity and contribute to world peace. The transmission of cultural heritage, the common property of humanity, to future generations is extremely important in order to create a society that embraces diverse cultures. From this perspective, Japan promotes various cultural cooperation initiatives and has been actively involved in protecting endangered World Heritage Sites. For example, we have been engaged in cooperation for more than 30 years on the Angkor site in Cambodia and more than 20 years on the Bamiyan site in Afghanistan. We will continue to provide support for these projects. Intangible cultural heritage should also be recognized as having common value for humanity and enabling the acceptance of diverse cultures throughout the world. To this end, Japan has led the work to revise the registration system under the UNESCO Convention for Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage and contributed to increasing the number of registrations. We believe that sharing the heritage accumulated by each culture throughout the world will help to realize a sustainable society and promote mutual understanding and respect between different cultures. On education, Japan has been leading the Education for Sustainable Development, ESD, initiative to support the promotion of the SDGs. Japan has long promoted ESD, mainly through the UNESCO ASP.NET. By making the children of the next generation aware of common global issues from the perspective of sustainable development, we hope that ESD will lead to a broad understanding of different cultures and at the same time cultivate an attitude and citizenship to face common challenges. International exchanges among young people studying at higher education around the world is also important. Japan, as a lead country in Asia for the UNESCO Global Convention on Higher Education, supports its active implementation. Studying globally at an early stage in their lives young people will enrich their lives through their exposure to different cultures and interaction with people from different backgrounds. By promoting youth exchanges, we wish to foster an environment in which diversity is respected throughout the world. On science and technology, UNESCO is an international organization that makes a unique contribution. Disaster risk reduction is one of the examples, as UNESCO takes a multi-hazard approach that encompasses a wide range of disasters such as floods and droughts, tsunamis, and earthquakes. It also takes a multi-sectoral approach that covers not only science, but also education and culture. Japan, as a disaster-prone country, attaches great importance to its cooperation with UNESCO. Marine science is another area. Through its Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, IOC, UNESCO promotes the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. Japan fully supports these activities. To conclude, in the current international context of various conflicts, frequent natural disasters, and political and socioeconomic challenges in various regions, promoting educational, scientific, and cultural cooperation between nations is more important than ever. In this regard, UNESCO provides an important platform. Through various channels, including UNESCO, Japan will support international initiatives that respect diversity and encourage exchanges and dialogues between different cultures. Thank you for your attention, and je vous remercie.
Je vous remercie infiniment de ce témoignage du Japon, et nous allons revenir du côté de l'Europe et tout près de chez nous, la France, en allant à Monaco. Lorsque l'on se promène sur le territoire de Monaco, on entend toutes les langues. Il est difficile de se dire qu'à Monaco, on ne parle que le français. Alors, monsieur l'ambassadeur, comment favorisez-vous à Monaco l'interculturalité?
Tout d'abord, merci madame de votre invitation. C'est un honneur d'être ici. Effectivement, comme vous le disiez, pour nous, le français est la langue officielle. Mais cependant, nous sommes interconnectés et cela correspond parfaitement au thème de l'interculturalité. Nous avons à la fois ce lien avec la France, mais également avec l'Italie, qui est à 10 km de notre frontière. Donc l'italien, par exemple, est vraiment la deuxième langue pratiquée dans le pays. Nous avons un système en fait éducatif déjà qui favorise l'apprentissage de nombreuses langues étrangères. Donc dès la maternelle, en fait, on apprend déjà l'anglais, puis après le dialecte aussi, puisque nous avons un dialecte qui est le monégasque, un dérivé de l'italien. Et ensuite, très tôt, en fait, dès la première année de collège, nous avons aussi d'autres langues qui sont enseignées dans l'éducation. Donc c'est déjà un moyen de pouvoir favoriser cette interculturalité. Après, voilà, nous avons 140 nationalités sur le territoire. Donc effectivement, c'est quelque chose d'intrinsèque. En fait, on est habitué à cela. C'est une particularité en Europe. En fait, les ressortissants monégasques sont une minorité dans leur pays. Ils représentent seulement 25% de la population. Et nous avons plus de Français et d'Italiens, par exemple, sur le territoire que de nationaux. Donc pour nous, c'est quelque chose vraiment de propre à notre identité, si je puis dire, puisque nous baignons dedans depuis que nous naissons, et la pratique de plusieurs langues est vraiment quelque chose dans lequel nous sommes imprégnés. Donc c'est vraiment une dynamique permanente de nos autorités de favoriser ce multiculturalisme et ce multilinguisme au regard de cette particularité dans nos populations. Voilà.
Je vous remercie beaucoup. Vous vouliez peut-être ajouter un point de vue plus général sur
Oui, moi j'avais préparé par rapport à votre thématique sur la manière dont ça se passe au niveau des organisations internationales. Et effectivement, c'est vrai que l'interculturalité est quand même quelque chose d'intrinsèque au métier de diplomate. Et effectivement, si on ne prend pas en compte notre interlocuteur et ses spécificités, je vois difficilement comment on peut dialoguer avec lui. Donc pour nous, c'est vraiment quelque chose d'indispensable, et vouloir imposer aussi de son point de vue sans prendre en compte les spécificités du pays et de sa culture me semble voué à l'échec pour pouvoir parvenir à des accords. Et comme je vois que j'ai aussi beaucoup de collègues qui sont là, on est 46 autour de la table, donc en général, on essaie d'arriver à trouver un compromis. Et si on n'arrive pas à discuter et à prendre en compte aussi l'opinion de l'autre et sa culture, ce sera plutôt un champ de bataille plutôt qu'un lieu de discussion et d'échange. Et donc, pour nous, c'est quelque chose d'essentiel de pouvoir aussi intégrer les nécessités de notre interlocuteur, tout en fait, c'est toujours l'équilibre qui est difficile à trouver entre le fait d'être réunis autour de nos valeurs, qui reposent sur la défense de l'état de droit, de la démocratie et des droits de l'homme, sans négliger ses spécificités. Donc, il faut arriver toujours à trouver ce juste milieu qui nous permet de satisfaire à la fois les exigences de l'organisation, mais aussi, aussi à défendre les intérêts de notre État. Donc, c'est toute la difficulté, mais c'est un exercice passionnant à faire au quotidien avec mes 45 homologues. Voilà.
Je crois que la Belgique a un problème de connexion. Donc,
Non, apparemment l'ambassadeur de Belgique est malheureusement pris par un engagement de dernière minute et
il
ne
a dû
pourra
s'échapper.
malheureusement pas se joindre à nous.
Donc, il s'est échappé. Je voudrais demander si un ambassadeur est, parce qu'avant de passer à la troisième, de continuer, quels sont les ambassadeurs qui seraient disponibles là? Voilà, Madame Vorgeter, est-ce que vous pouvez me dire votre pays? Est-ce que je l'ai pas sous les yeux? Ah, votre micro est coupé.
Je suis autrichienne. C'était prévu, voilà, à la dernière
Je suis à
minute.
Saint-Polten en ce moment. Je suis dans votre pays en ce moment et il pleut beaucoup. Je suis
Ah,
en
mais
Autriche.
mon Dieu. Ok. C'est peut-être un peu un effet européen, parce que aussi à Strasbourg,
Oui,
il
je
pleut.
suis en Autriche. Alors, du côté de l'Autriche, comment se passe, comment ressentez-vous l'interculturalité et quelles seraient peut-être les préconisations ou les conseils que vous pourriez donner à tous ces étudiants qui nous écoutent?
Permettez-moi de parler un peu, voilà, de ma situation personnelle, professionnelle, comme je suis tyrolienne, alors je viens voilà, de la région et j'ai vécu dans une situation culturelle spécifique. Voilà, parce que voilà, c'est une culture très homogène. Et aussi, quand j'étais enfant et grandi voilà, en Tyrol, on mettait beaucoup d'emphase, beaucoup de positivisme sur le fait que voilà, c'est une culture homogène et voulait rester homogène. Et permettez-moi aussi, je suis un peu tirée entre l'utilisation de la langue française et anglaise parce que voilà, il y a des choses qui se font sur ce côté et l'autre côté. Permettez-moi de changer un peu et je m'excuse aux interprètes. So when I grew up, and let me just also reflect what you heard from colleagues that were just speaking, because it became quite clear that there is and we need to look at places where intercultural dialogue was used as a weapon, and let's call it the weaponization of identity. And all people and places who have experienced that suffer from that. It makes intercultural dialogue so much more difficult. Permettez-moi aussi, let me also come back to what Papen Ndiaye said. He spoke specifically about the value of dialogue and not just interculturality. And please let me show this. I was in the ministry, I was responsible for putting together this book, editing this book that deals exactly about intercultural dialogue done by diplomats and how intercultural dialogue can enter the diplomatic sphere. I think this is what you're aiming for today also. When we take dialogue seriously, we will always touch our identities. And the question is then, we will always encounter that we are of different culture, starting by women, men and women, ethnicities, of course, social cultures that might different within one country. And it's not always going outside of one's own country to encounter a new culture and to see how things are done differently. So what I've experienced is a society that was practically adamant to say we want to stay who we are. We do not want to know about how others feel, and because we are quite self-sufficient in our cultural identity, and we want to preserve what we have. And they, at that time, this is some time ago, I'm not a young person anymore, the feeling was that I would lose myself. And I heard some of the colleagues speaking about the same thing. And thank goodness, psychology is a natural science, and also diplomacy and cultural relations have an aspect of advancing in knowledge. So what we know today is that we do not lose ourselves by having intercultural dialogue. I lose myself if I'm forced to assimilate, or if I have cultural power reason to assimilate. But if just by encountering and just by dialoguing with somebody who's not my own culture, I actually have the chance to find myself. Because just as we heard from our good colleague from Mongolia, Ambassador Namku, if I pronounce it correctly, she gave our societies, and what she said about the French language, and the name of her country also goes for the German language. That's an incredible mirror that we need in order to understand that we got something wrong. And maybe, I don't know, when we were qualifying diseases, it looked innocent to do it this way. But as we have more interaction, we understand that we need to adapt, and that we need to increase complexity in our cultural understanding. And what I also noticed growing up where I did and becoming a diplomat is that there was a certain fear of complexity, and that also keeping things simple was considered a value, and somehow not losing time by reinventing the cultural wheel all the time. Only I would plead today that without that complexity, there's a good chance that we're getting things wrong. And it also, what we need to do is to create the energy for this complexity. And this happens when we stop, again, let me use that word, to weaponize culture. There was a notion, again, I'm talking my own background, which I think when in the 60s, there was still a notion of things that happened before, of, I don't know, my culture has invented great things. We have done great things, and this makes us, again, superior. We had this issue before, which is extremely limiting. And I think we know all of these things now, and the Council of Europe teaches us every day. Let me just also go to the issue of language, because I don't know where in Austria you are at the moment, but in Graz, the Council of Europe maintains the European Center for Modern Languages, which speaks exactly about the issue of there was a moment where we thought multilingualism will, I don't know, hold children back, or they will not properly learn their mother tongue, or it will be too complicated for them. And now in Graz, the Council of Europe Center on Modern Languages shows us through the research that they are doing that the earlier we engage and bring children to understand different languages and speak those languages, they will be more, they will adapt better to all the different influences that we have in life. Let me stop here, and there's a debate later. Thank you.
No, you can continue. I'm in St. Polton.
Oh, all right.
Yes, I'm in St. Polton because there is the General Assembly of EURASHE, the European Association for Higher Education. So I'm attending the GA. So it's very important what you said regarding culture and the diversity of culture, and to keep, I will switch to French because this is my language. Lorsqu'un pays veut prendre possession d'un autre pays, la première des choses qu'il fait, c'est détruire tous les symboles de la culture, puisque ça détruit le patrimoine, ça détruit le passé, et finalement, ça détruit l'identité de la personne, ce à quoi elle est le plus attachée, que ce soit un paysage, une petite fontaine, un petit lavoir, des œuvres d'art, bien sûr les symboles religieux. Et la culture et l'art, arriver à comprendre et à aller vers la culture et l'art, c'est tout simplement une preuve d'amour. C'est l'amour de l'autre. C'est aller vers l'autre. Donc cette interculturalité où vous avez vraiment axé, beaucoup défendu l'aspect culturel, me touche beaucoup. Je vous repasse la parole.
Si, permettez-moi, parce que il me semble que...
English.
Non, non, c'est bien. J'ai l'impression que ce moment-là que vous décrivez, on pensait que si on détruit l'autre, je perds rien, parce que voilà, j'ai gagné quelque chose, parce que j'ai gagné l'espace culturel que voilà, j'ai détruit. Mais voilà, la science et la psychologie maintenant nous apprend que je perds moi-même. Si voilà, en détruisant l'autre, je perds mon miroir et je perds la chance d'apprendre moi-même, parce que c'est l'autre qui voilà, m'explique ma spécificité à moi et qui fait me comprendre ma spécificité.
Oui, tout à fait. Donc, je vais proposer de passer la parole à la Macédoine du Nord, North Macedonia, et après, je repasserai la parole à Bruno Maciel, qui est un jeune, pour qu'il nous fasse une petite pause, et pendant quelques minutes, il nous rassemble ses idées principales qui ont été évoquées. Je sais que c'est un challenge que je lui demande, mais il saura le faire brillamment. Et c'est important aussi le regard des jeunes sur ce qui s'est passé. Et je vois Madame l'ambassadrice de Mongolie, et votre témoignage était tellement poignant que je pense que ça a touché les jeunes. Du côté de la Macédoine du Nord, l'interculturalité en Macédoine du Nord, Madame Geleva, quelle est votre position et comment cela se vit chez vous et pour vous?
Okay, hello to everybody. First of all, I'm honored to be part of this discussion today, because this issue is very important for my country. But first of all, I would like to thank the ambassador of Nigeria to UNESCO and my colleague Gabriel from Monaco for explaining the position of ambassadors in multilateral organizations and other settings. They did it so well that I don't have to add anything to their words. You know that generally much has been, this is a very popular topic internationally and nationally. In different international organizations, I was dealing with the UN, and there I was in charge of Alliance of Civilizations and other initiatives dealing with this important issue. So now, as the ambassador to the Council of Europe, I've seen a lot of things being done in this area. The aim is, of course, to make our democracies more resilient and to respect human dignity and human rights and the diversity which is quite rich in our continent. And when we speak beyond, it is even beyond words. I'm not going to speak about what we do in the Council of Europe, because I guess you know much about it. I'm going to speak about the experience in my country. As you know, North Macedonia is a multicultural, multi-ethnic society, and it is located in the Western Balkans. We are known for a rather diverse ethnic spectrum, which sometimes, which is mainly enriching, but sometimes it also brings a lot of challenges, unfortunately. You know that we have a short interethnic conflict in 2001, luckily a short one, and it ended in one agreement, which is called the Ohrid Framework Agreement, which was later on incorporated in our constitution. and it gave improved position and more rights to ethnic minorities, ethnic communities, that's how we call them. And by the way, I'm also, I'm not Macedonian, I'm ethnic Montenegrin, happily married to a Macedonian a long time ago. But it's a small community, but and it's not constitutionally recognized, but still we have quite a wide range of rights in the country. So after the Ohrid Framework Agreement, that conflict ended, there was a lot of documents produced with the help of international organizations, of course, UN, OSCE, Council of Europe, and our own civil society organizations and national and independent human rights institutions. But there was a lack of document or lack of strategy that could deal with it in a comprehensive way. So it was only in 2020 when we recognized that we have a realistically divided society along ethnic lines, but also which coincided with religious and linguistic lines. So we had this first strategy, which was called Strategy for One Society for All and Interculturalism. It was the first attempt. It was good. It had some good results. It lasted for 3 years, and then we decided to do something more comprehensive. And we, in February this year, we adopted a new strategy, which is called National Strategy for the Development of Interculturalism and Social Cohesion 2024-2026. Of course, along with the action plan. It builds on the results of the first strategy, but you know, it identifies the gaps and also gives a number of solutions to the identified gaps. There are 5 main areas it focuses. It's institutions, because we have this equitable representation issue in the institutions. Then intercultural policies, social cohesion, education, and the media. Of course, we have used a number of international documents. We have also used the recommendations of international monitoring bodies, including the Council of Europe, specifically ECRI and Advisory Committee to the Framework Convention for the Protection of National Minorities. There is a number of principles that the strategy is based on, which is non-discrimination, equality, gender equality, mutual respect, dignity, etc., etc. Of course, CSOs were involved, and independent human rights bodies, and they are going to be involved in the implementation of the strategy. My personal take on what is most important is, I have to say, education. First, it is for the young generations to change what we didn't do well. But, you know, sometimes there are deeply rooted divisions in society. But it is for the education sector to prepare young people to bring them change, and education must promote respect for diversity, avoid segregation, learn children and youth about democratic values and human rights. In the issue in our case is the lack of integrated education, and when you don't know your peer speaking different language or belonging to a different ethnicity, it is a problem that perpetuates in society. So integrated education is, I think, key. Of course, the role of the media. They can do good and they can do bad. Their role in fighting or promoting stereotypes, then hate speech, then divisions, spreading misinformation, disinformation, it's crucial for every society. I also think that we sometimes forget the influence of the economic situation on interethnic relations. You know, but the better you are off, you less think that the other is a danger to you. And of course, the role of political elites in the country and their take and their view on multiculturalism and the other ethnic minority. And the most important thing for every society, and including Macedonian, is to not to shy away from discussing the problems, because by shying away from discussing the problems, you just postpone the consequences. And that is my you know, suggestion for all those who have different challenges in this area, that, you know, diversity and different identities makes us rich, but they really also bring a number of challenges that should be tackled on time so that conflicts are avoided. So thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. Et en effet, il est plus facile de n'avoir qu'une seule identité que de s'ouvrir à d'autres et de s'approprier plusieurs identités. Je voudrais passer la parole tout de suite à l'Angola. I give the floor to the ambassador of Angola because I know that you have an appointment and I would like to have your opinion about interculturality. I'm speaking in English, but maybe you prefer French, I don't know. The floor is yours. I think you have to activate the mic. Your mic is closed. Le micro est coupé pour l'Angola. You have to activate your mic. We can't understand, we can't hear you. You have to activate the mic. Yes. No. Just switch on the mic. Turn on the mic. Donc, il y a toujours un petit souci, ce n'est pas grave. Il y a 3 petits points en haut et à droite. You have 3 little dots on the top on the right. And then if you tick on the 3 little dots, it's written, look at that, you can activate your mic. Est-ce que je pourrais, en attendant que le micro s'allume, demander qu'un ambassadeur, une ambassadrice qui est présente mette sa vidéo, que je sache à qui je peux passer la parole ensuite. You know what I can do, Mrs. Oliveira? I'm going to give the floor to Bruno Maciel, just to make a little wrap up of all the discussion and debates we just have had. And oh yes, you have the floor. I think that your mic is activated. Can you speak?
Hey, I'm trying to log in. Слушай, I finished because there was nobody, and they were asking for the ambassadors to jump in from other groups if somebody.
Svetlana, your mic is on. Svetlana, your mic is on. So, Mrs. Oliveira, I think you have your mic on. Maybe you can speak. No, we have an issue with Angola. Okay. Maybe I give the floor to Natasha Kayer because I saw you online. Natasha.
I don't know if you can still see me online. Can you see me?
No, we can't
because my
see
video
you.
keeps,
no,
yeah,
I can't
my
see
video
you.
keeps popping on and off. I'm not sure why. Anyway, I'm trying again.
No, we can see you. We can see you. So the floor is yours. Donc du Canada.
Thank you very much. Je vais parler un peu en français, un peu en anglais. Je vais démontrer que les langues, c'est très important pour comprendre entre les cultures ce qui se passe, comment les gens pensent. I'm very lucky to come from a country that has 2 official languages and about, I don't know, 600 more that are spoken in the country. probably more than that at this point. But it is a country that's built on a multicultural premise. There are Indigenous Canadians that live in the country. There are many coming from Europe. There are many coming from every other continent. And it's very important that we celebrate those differences in culture and that we try to understand them the best we can. And in answering some of the questions that were asked for the speakers, I mean, I know that there are students that are listening, and I want to make this as real and tangible for them as possible as to why it's important for them and how they can go about really enhancing their prospects and global prospects by embracing interculturality. The first question that we were asked is, you know, why does cultural diversity matter? And I think as a country that has such a rich history in terms of multicultural origins of our peoples, but particularly with regard to Indigenous peoples, it makes us sensitive to the fact that each culture is a knowledge system. It's not just a way of doing things, a way of thinking. It also brings with it different knowledge about how to interact with the world, how to solve problems, what technologies can be used to deal with problems. And I use technology as a very broad concept, not just gadgets and science, but actual ways of approaching problems and solving them. So it's very important that we embrace other cultures because they can help each person to have more tools to deal with the very challenging world that we're in. So that would be, you know, a key thing for any young person coming through their school system to understand. And it is something that's of practical use every day. Any negotiation, whether it's in trying to get a job, which is an interview where you're trying to sell yourself, you're trying to get yourself appreciated by those who are interviewing you. Anytime you're trying to manage getting a contract signed with someone, anytime you're in a negotiation over, you know, simple daily things, the extent to which you understand the culture of the person that you're dealing with will enhance your ability to know what's important to them and know why they act in a certain way and be able to reach some kind of compromise with them if their interests are different, because you understand where it's coming from. It's not just something they said, but it's also the culture from which they come. And I think as a diplomat, I've been working mostly in security policy, but also here at UNESCO twice now. And we see this every day. We understand that when we talk to each other, if we come from a place of open-mindedness and active listening, we're going to be able to find ways to avoid conflict, to find solutions that are going to help all sides of a particular problem set. And it's really, really important to cultivate that talent, that understanding that you have to be an active listener and to go deeper into that other person's culture so that you can understand where they're coming from and therefore meet them halfway, or sometimes 3/4 of the way or 1/4 of the way. I mean, depending on what's at stake. So language, of course, is a key element of that. There was a question here about languages or there were answers that I gave that were all about languages because, again, language is the carrier of cultures. I mean, I look at the African continent. There are so many different language groups of, you know, roughly 500,000 people or more. It's actually incredible that there isn't more conflict because of all of those different cultures that are side by side on the continent. It's therefore important to try to enhance our knowledge through language of those other cultures as, again, a way of getting inside the mindset of those who seem to be different from us and are different from us, but at the base are human like us and come and have the same impulses and have the same desire to see development for themselves, for their families, peace at the end of the day is something that serves everybody, but it needs to be something that we actively seek through understanding others. So I think that at the heart of interculturality is this idea of empathy. I think empathy is something that is getting short shrift in the world today with the social media environment in some countries that is uniquely, let's say, to put it nicely, narcissistic, and tends to be very superficial. And the idea of deepening your understanding of others is something that is not cultivated as much as should be in our school systems. But I think as well, the modern technologies that are putting people into little internet bubbles, technologies now also helping to translate between cultures and to expose the beauty of different cultures to those who are from other groups. So I think it's a very great thing that this event was organized today. I don't want to speak for too long because I do think it would be good we have more time for questions. And I can see that I have some fantastic colleagues here who I know are going to have a really great points to raise. But I would just, leave you with that thought that, the more we can understand interculturally and embrace difference and understand where it comes from and why it is, the better we are enabled to seek peace, to seek development, and to prosper as societies that see the respect given to each and every individual in it. So thank you very much for inviting me. I look forward to the questions.
Merci beaucoup pour ce témoignage du Canada. Et je vais passer la parole au pays le plus peuplé du monde, l'Inde, qui est devenu le pays le plus peuplé. Vous me corrigerez, monsieur l'ambassadeur. Et je crois que l'interculturalité se vit au quotidien en Inde. Donc, quel message pourriez-vous transmettre à tous les étudiants qui nous écoutent? Et quel est votre point de vue?
Thank you. You're absolutely correct. It is the most populated country in the world. It's the largest democracy of the world, and it's in the next 3 years, it's going to be the third largest economy in the world. So, Excellencies, friends, and colleagues, Namaste, Salam, and Bonjour. It is an honor to speak to you on behalf of India, the ancient land of 1,600 languages, 1.43 billion people, 340 million children of school-going age, 1.5 million schools, 42,000 colleges, 10 million teachers, and over 1,100 universities. I'm sorry, there is an interruption.
No, we can hear you very clear. Everything is clear and right. It's amazing. 1,100
universities. The right to education is fundamental in India, with 150,000 registered newspapers and periodicals, 900 satellite television channels in 100 languages, 800 million people accessing news via mobile platforms. India is not only the largest democracy, but also the largest manifestation of freedom of expression on planet Earth. With 22 scheduled or official languages of the government of India, India embodies unity in diversity, or anekta mein ekta. India's cultural diversity is a soft power. Multilingualism and intercultural skills, crucial in today's world, are contributing to the global success of Indians. India's management of cultural diversity is a model for the world. From Kashmir in the north to Tamil Nadu in the south, Gujarat in the west, and Arunachal Pradesh in the east. Our diversity in dress, language, and cuisine makes India a subcontinent. India, often referred to as Mother, is a cultural superpower of diversity and embraces all without discriminating on caste, creed, race, or religion, epitomizing secularism and cultural diversity. Amidst the global turmoil that we are seeing today, India's prayers for global peace, reflected in the ancient Sanskrit prayer, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, for the peace and benefit of all, stands as a beacon of hope. Indian knowledge systems like Ayurveda, yoga, Vedic mathematics are rooted in these principles. In fact, the word yoga stands for unity. Since ancient times, India has made significant contributions to the global cultural and educational framework. The decimal number system, known in the West as Arabic numerals, is actually known in Arabia itself as Hindi numerals because it originated in India. Renowned philosophers like Vyasa, Gautama, Ashtakvakra, Panini, Kapila, and the Buddha highlight India's philosophical diversity. I encourage you to read them. In 2020, India's Ministry of Education introduced the National Education Policy, NEP, fostering a vocation-based educational ecosystem that promotes entrepreneurship and artistic potential through experiential learning and toy-based pedagogy. The NEP encourages multilingualism and the use of mother tongue and regional languages in early education, reflecting that most Indians are multilingual and can speak or understand 3 or more languages. The NEP also preserves indigenous languages, illustrated by the Jadui Pitara concept, a play-based learning material designed to spark the curiosity among children aged 3 to 8 years of age with local culture, social context, and language. The MGIP, Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Education for Peace and Sustainable Development, a UNESCO Category 1 institute in India, explores the concept of peace neurons in the brains, aiming to groom children towards peace and sustainable development. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Ek Bharat, Shresht Bharat initiative celebrates cultural diversity through mutual interaction and reciprocity among different Indian states and union territories. The Yuva Sangam initiative is an educational and cultural exchange program for the Indian youth, celebrating diversity through week-long exposure tours between paired states. Over 4,000 youth delegates have participated, enforcing unity in diversity through structured cultural connections. India is also the home to Auroville, an experimental township founded by a Parisian woman, Mira Alfassa, the spiritual collaborator of Sri Aurobindo. Auroville's international community and collaborative living is a masterclass in cross-cultural interactions and consensus building. India exemplifies unwavering commitment to Vishwa Kalyan, benefit of all. India is poised to become the 3rd largest economy in the next 3 years. Her economic rise benefits her major trading partners like the United States and the European Union. Free trade agreements with many European countries underline the need for more intercultural exchanges. The ancient Sanskrit language, after all, is an Indo-European language. Friends, the world of yesterday was fraught with crisis, wars, and protests. The world of today stands at a transition point. What will it be? Whether we regress into the past conflicts or evolve through education, science, and culture into the world of tomorrow, it depends on our choices. India will host the 46th session of the World Heritage Committee in July. I invite you all to visit India during your August holidays, experience the diversity, the Ayurvedic spas in Kerala, ride an elephant in Assam, see the tigers in Rajasthan, lions in Gujarat, take a boat ride in Srinagar, or witness the Ganga Aarti in Varanasi, or visit Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha attained enlightenment 2,300 years ago. The founder of Apple Computers, Steve Jobs, visited India in his youth. and was energized by her creative diversity. If it is blood that energizes the body of man, surely it is inspiration that stimulates his soul. I hope my words have been able to provide that little bit of inspiration for you to dare to walk the path, seeking to unite humanity into one family. Come to India, sit in quiet meditation along the Ganges or on the slopes of the Himalayas and discover your creativity in the oceanic diversity of the ancient Mother India. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've been in India and I'm a personal fan of Kapoor, Anish Kapoor, and also Gupta. And your words are very wise and a lot of philosophy behind. So it's very thoughtful. Je vous remercie beaucoup, Monsieur l'ambassadeur, de ces mots pleins de sagesse et pleins de philosophie aussi, et de cet encouragement à découvrir l'Inde auprès de nos étudiants. Alors, j'ai vu que l'Angola avait réussi à se reconnecter puis à se déconnecter. Je ne sais pas si l'Angola est en ligne. Sinon, je vais passer la parole à la Slovénie, puisque j'ai vu qu'elle était en ligne, Madame Berta Mrak.
Pardon, Claude, oui, l'Angola, malheureusement, ils ont eu des problèmes techniques pour se connecter avec l'audio.
Oui.
Et entre-temps, l'ambassadrice avait une réunion urgente à 16h, 16h20.
Très bien, Bruno.
Donc,
très bien. Donc, je vais passer la parole à Madame Berta Mrak de la Slovénie. Donc, après cette plus grande démocratie, plus peuplée, tout au moins dans le monde qu'est l'Inde, nous allons vers la Slovénie. Et quel message, I don't know if you speak in English or in French, but whatever, you feel free to take the floor. Et donc, voilà, l'interculturalité au cœur de la Slovénie, Madame Mrak.
Bonjour Madame et bonjour à tout le monde. Ça me fait plaisir d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui. C'est en fait le jour international de la diversité culturelle et je trouve que cette conférence est très pertinente que vous organisez aujourd'hui. Je vais quand même continuer en anglais. As I said, I'm very pleased to be with you today as a permanent representative of Slovenia to the Council of Europe, and having done most of my career in multilateral sphere, I find it actually difficult to imagine myself living in a world that would be completely unified and homogeneous in terms of population, languages, or habits, or cultures, or religions. I think that diversity is a synonym for richness. However, it brings also very, very important challenges to us in terms of respecting one another. And I think that in general, for a human being, we do tend to make snap judgments about others and other cultures that we don't know or are different, no matter which continent, I'd say. And this can only lead to discrimination and the exclusion of people from diverse cultures. And it's a good recipe for tensions and conflicts and wars. And in a nowadays situation, globally looking, I think that talking and promoting cultural diversity is more needed than ever. It ensures people and groups with different cultural identities to cooperate and to live together, living within a framework of tolerance and mutual respect. It brings peace and security, be it at local, be it at national or international level. Just to remind you that the Council of Europe and the European Union have actually been shaped on this basis of diversity. And at some point, this word of diversity has become a synonym that it makes us stronger, so united in a diversity. Now, of course, all these inequalities still persist among the member states, but we do have guarantees that are ensured with treaties and laws that give certain basic safeguards to our citizens. Now, Slovenia has only 2 million population, and we do not have so many languages as my Indian colleague elaborated, but it did recall to me that nonetheless, of being so small, we do have 30 different dialects, which is a very high number for such a small population. But Slovenia has always strived for protecting and promoting cultural diversity. We have ratified all the international commitments coming from UNESCO or UN. We encourage dialogue among cultures. We raise awareness of the importance of respecting cultural diversity to foster social cohesion and to live peacefully together. For a small member state, this is even more important in a globalized world. Now, how to enhance the importance of the cultural diversity from the point of view of an ambassador, looking from the perspective on a daily basis or in a more general framework? I think education is one of most important thing. That's why, as I said, I found this conference extremely important. With the education, we understand and the world better, and we prepare for the global citizenship. We promote tolerance and empathy, which is basically essential for building peace and harmonious societies. Then cultural exchanges. For example, in Europe, we have this Erasmus program with students who are traveling across Europe and discovering new cultures, different educational systems, and they do come back more empowered and more rich. With communication, multilingualism helps to bridge cultural divides, foster understanding, promote collaboration in diverse communities. It's also an economic opportunities. Usually individuals who are proficient in several languages and have intercultural competence, they are very much searched by global companies because they can communicate more effectively and with a wide range of clients. So to conclude, I would say this interculturality nowadays is more relevant than ever. It is also an important asset for the young generations in today's globalized world. It's also, I would say, the focus of every multilateral ambassador, especially here in the Council of Europe or in the European Union, because we want to facilitate respect and understanding, and we want to promote democracy and human rights, and we want to contribute to peace. And with this, I think I will conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vzrak. Cette année, la Fédé a remis le prix des droits humains. Nous délivrons le prix des droits humains. Et c'est un tout petit pays qui a remporté le prix, c'est Sao Tomé et Principe, qui sont membres de la Fédé. Nous avons un établissement là-bas. Et c'est un jeune homme qui a fait tout un travail justement sur l'interculturalité et également le développement durable dans son pays. Donc, les petits pays sont souvent beaucoup plus engagés. Alors, je vais passer la parole à la Bosnie. Et la Bosnie a tout de même un challenge à relever, puisque vivre l'interculturalité quand on a connu des guerres et des conflits en interne au sein de son propre pays, se battre avec son voisin, comme le font certains encore, c'est toujours difficile de parler d'interculturalité. Donc, du point de vue de la Bosnie, comment vivre cette interculturalité en Bosnie et comment la renforcer et la diffuser pour persévérer dans la paix?
Thank you very much. I will be speaking in English. Now, first, thank you for inviting me to discuss this issue. Very interesting for my country and my perspective, but also we have something to say because of our both positive and negative experience with the multiculturalism. Do you hear me? Sorry. What did I say?
Yes, we hear you.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you. First of all, I must say that I totally agree with what my Slovenian friend and colleague has said, with Ambassador Mrak. It is good for the students to learn, to hear about, and definitely experience multicultural aspects of life, which I believe today is not so uncommon, like perhaps it was when I was and many of others students. Now, Bosnia and Herzegovina is an interesting place in Europe when we speak about multiculturalism. It is the country where not only different but similar cultures meet, but the country and the region where civilizations meet. Well, my country, together with some other parts of the Balkans, actually belong to the Western civilization, Slavic Orthodox Eastern civilization, and Islamic Oriental civilization. For the 90% of our historic time, peoples, citizens, lived enriched with this fact, knowing each other, living with each other, living for each other. But for the 10% of the historic time, it was absolute disaster. It was awful, bloody experience. Of course, those 10% of the historical time will be noticed by the world much more for obvious reasons. They would suck up all the oxygen from the air, from the information flowing air. So people would, of course, associate my country, perhaps not now anymore, but previously definitely, like any other places in the world, with some negative aspect of the multiculturalism. During those 10% of the historic time, we had horrific war and atrocities, even genocide is committed in my country in the 1995, recognized by the many courts in the world. So to speak only in a pink and nice way about the multiculturalism would be relatively unfair. But still, I would go that far to say that multicultural aspects, especially for young students, are very enriching for a young man or woman, for a young person. And they actually can and will be a challenge when the societal matters are in concern. So from individual aspect, living with people of other cultural background is in one way or another enriching. It will assist you to take a look at the very same things with a different way, understand how different people, different cultures can see the same thing that you see from different perspective, and perhaps you will find a better way how to deal with the issues in everyday lives. When you take a deeper look, when you deeply understand how it can be seen by others. But on a societal level, on a state building level, on multicultural fora building level, it's a challenge where you would need a lot of patience, a lot of devotion to democracy, to the listening, not only speaking, but to listening to others' political views and approaches. Us being at the multicultural fora or multi-political fora, as we are, some of us who are ambassadors in the Council of Europe, of course, are trained to do so, and most probably, and most of us do it in a relatively successful manner. But you, young students, it would be, in my opinion, good for you to be trained as well to listen to other cultural points of view, especially political one, with more of understanding and more of compromise approach. The world that we live in, especially Europe now, is kind of the political multicultural society where decision-making process in both in Council of Europe, but definitely in the European Union, is everyday negotiating and struggle between different approaches. We in Europe now see that even within the Western democracies or part of the European Union, countries and NATO countries, you now still can see differences in opinion, which could be and are to a certain extent annoying, without anybody even mentioning it. So, for you young students who are listening to this, me coming from Bosnia and Herzegovina, I would repeat what I said and try to conclude in this manner. Multiculturalism is enriching experience, especially for individuals. If you end up in societal structures, in decision-making process within the different countries, in your country or in some multilateral fora, train yourself for the patience, and you will of course be better trained if you have a multicultural experience, both in your neighbors or in your country or your universities or in your families, of course, because that's definitely the world that you are going to live in or operate in, and that's the world that we live in even today. There will be challenges. It's not that easy. It is easier said than done. You will see it. But still, it is rewarding at the end. Even avoiding conflicts that have happened in Europe all across the world throughout the history, and unfortunately are still happening, is tremendous achievement. Of course, for those generations of the Europeans who did not experience violence or conflicts, it is something to be taken for granted. I understand that. But for many others who have unfortunately experienced conflicts, it is probably something that is the best possible political, societal, and multilateral gift. So thank you for now, and thank you again for having me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador Basic. And I understand that that countries in Europe, they were facing wars, they are still facing wars. And that's right, the point that our democracy are still fragile. So we have to strengthen them, and the interculturality is, I think, a good tool to, well, if I can say tool, to strengthen our democracy. Je sais qu'il y a un ambassadeur qui avait du mal à se connecter. Je demande s'il s'est connecté. C'est Monsieur Dastid Koreshi. Dastid Koreshi. Et je profite de ce petit problème technique de la fin. Dastid Koreshi, are you online? Maybe not. Est-ce que je vois qu'il y a encore des ambassadeurs qui sont connectés? L'après-midi était pourtant riche et long. Est-ce que vous auriez quelque chose à dire là? Vous voudriez ajouter quelque chose? Madame Vergater, je vois que vous allez cliquer pour mettre le micro. L'ambassade d'Autriche.
Yes, indeed. I'm listening to my colleagues and I notice how unprepared I am, even after 30 years of diplomacy, to think of intercultural conflict as a reality, as a permanent reality. And so I know that we will continue discussing this in the Council of Europe, and thank goodness the Council of Europe exists so we can discuss it. But now I see my colleague Dastid, and I see that he's managed, and I will not take his space. Thank you.
Dastid Koreshi.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Do you hear me?
Oui, c'est à vous. Je ne sais pas si vous voulez parler en français ou en anglais. Les deux langues sont...
Bon, je vais essayer en anglais. Hein. C'est bien, je suis plus confortable de parler en anglais. Quand même, donc, la langue française est très belle, mais j'ai préparé mes notes en anglais. C'est pour ça que je vais continuer en anglais. I was following with great interest from the beginning. Unfortunately, this, artificial intelligence and technology is becoming very challenging for us, and very interesting interventions and discussion. I congratulate you on this initiative, and it's an honor even for me to participate here. This is, in fact, the interculturality can be assessed from different standpoints, and as it was the case today in the discussions, but I'll try to dwell a bit on cultural diversity from a viewpoint of the Western Balkans. We've heard here the domestic presentations, how the situation is within the countries, but there is a specificity when it comes to the Western Balkans, because a part of this let's say, performance of domestic politics, there is an extra layer, which is the relation between the countries and how we cooperate there. It goes without saying that the Western Balkans is a region marked by rich history, diverse ethnicities, and complex past, thus representing both challenging and opportunities for fostering mutual understanding and cooperation. This holds true as the 6 countries in this region represent an ethnocultural diversity, which I might say is definitional. This mosaic of culture reflects a history where the East, I can say, meets the West, and I believe that the specificity about this region is that its diversity stems from its position as a crossroad of different civilizations and empires. And it is also worth noting that while influenced by different civilizations and empires, the Western Balkans is also a rich place of traditions and beliefs with influences from different religious background and different ethnic groups. Now, the scars of its own history, the reminiscences of the past still linger, and conflicting narratives about history continue to shape the intra-regional relations. Having said that, I believe that everyone agrees that the work ahead is full of multifaceted challenges, and it takes a lot of patience, courage, and sometimes sacrifices to build a prosperous region with mutual respect for every country's cultural heritage. When we talk about interculturality, we would not necessarily tackle only the difference from the diversity aspect, but also all the components influencing that. And here comes the role of the Council of Europe, which is very, very appreciated. More specifically, the Council of Europe can play a vital role in fostering interculturality by supporting this cultural diversity, promoting dialogue, but also strengthening democratic institutions and fighting the phenomena hindering the harmony and respect towards each others. I strongly believe that this organization is the right one to address the root causes of the division and leveraging the region's rich cultural heritage, which is key to building peaceful and resilient societies. And the Council of Europe commitment to promoting understanding and cooperation is unwavering, and its actions, especially in the Western Balkans, speaks volumes, I can say. This organization has implemented numerous initiatives such as the Horizontal Facility program, which aims at, among others, to combat hate speech and crime, promote the rights of vulnerable groups. But for more than 3 decades since the waves of membership to the Council of Europe, of the countries of this region, there has been a very proactive role of this organization in assisting these countries in capacity building and equality bodies and law enforcement, raising awareness against hate speech, freedom of expression, assisting victims of hate crime, supporting reconciliation and democratization. One key feature of the work has also been the process of supporting reforms in education and sustainable growth. It has been said that education is of utmost importance, but not to cut it because I think we're running late. But I think, of course, we have to invest in the education, but especially in the case of the Western Balkans, the most important thing is to invest in the mindset, to change the mindset, because of course there are policies to develop, curriculums, tailor-made curriculums to promote, the cultural diversity, but the mindset of the government should be changed so that they contribute, to this process of healthy education, to invest in the generations for the future so that we can have healthy societies. I'm just cutting here and to leave more time if it's necessary. And thank you for letting me express myself here.
Thank you very much. And donc, je vous remercie beaucoup. Je vais demander à Bruno Maciel, qui est un de nos jeunes collaborateurs, qui a préparé cette réunion. Ce fut un gros travail et je remercie vraiment tous les ambassadeurs d'avoir pu contribuer par leurs interventions. Nous avons, comme vous le savez, enregistré tout ce que vous avez dit et nous allons vous l'adresser afin que nous puissions faire un ouvrage de tous vos témoignages, un ouvrage important sur le point de vue des ambassadeurs sur l'interculturalité. Donc vous pourrez évidemment modifier et enrichir ce que vous avez dit à l'oral. L'Angola nous a adressé un message, ils avaient des gros problèmes techniques, mais souhaitent absolument que leur texte paraissent et je vois le visage de la Mongolie avec un magnifique paysage derrière vous, chère madame, ça doit être la Mongolie et chaque fois que je vous regarde, ça me renvoie à ce mot mongol qu'en France nous avons tellement maltraité et je vous remercie de nous avoir mis un stop. C'est important aussi d'avoir des stops. Donc Bruno, un petit wrap-up, les idées principales de cette demi-journée sur l'interculturalité vue par les ambassadeurs. Je ne vais pas te faire ton wrap-up, mais entre le projet politique commencé par Papendiaï et globalement également terminé par Dastid Qureshi, qui a rappelé que c'était aussi un projet, un engagement politique que nous avons cheminé au travers de la culture, de la linguistique, des conflits internes. Donc voilà, est-ce que tu peux nous ressortir un petit peu tout cela?
Oui.
Le point de vue des jeunes.
Premièrement, je tenais à remercier tous les ambassadeurs et ambassadrices présentes ici, et aussi vos délégations, secrétariat, auxquels j'ai été en contact pendant ces 2 derniers mois et qui ont été très réactifs et très aimables tout au long de nos échanges. Donc, je voulais laisser ici un petit mot pour eux. Ensuite, concernant cet événement virtuel, du point de vue de la jeunesse, il est assez particulier, étant donné que ma génération est celle de la génération qui est née pendant la mondialisation et pendant l'ascension fulgurante des réseaux sociaux et de l'interconnectivité que les réseaux apportent. Donc c'est un peu notre quotidien, c'est devenu un peu je dirais qu'on ne sait plus vivre autrement sans ces outils-là. Donc, comme a été rappelé par mon estimée présidente, en début de cet événement, Monsieur l'ambassadeur Papendiaï a dit que l'interculturalité est avant tout un projet politique. Vous savez, il n'y a pas de construction de la nation, il n'y a pas une seule construction de la nation dans l'histoire qui n'a pas été portée par un gouvernement, par un État. L'interculturalité s'inscrit un peu aussi dans cette thématique, mais en raison de ces nouveaux canaux de communication, de cette interconnectivité du monde actuel, elle échappe aussi à certains codes que l'État autrefois avait le monopole. C'est pour ça que, au cours de ces dernières décennies, si on regarde les ouvrages et les publications des politologues, différents politologues, que ce soit en Europe, en Amérique ou en Asie, un sujet qui revient souvent, c'est est-ce la fin de l'État-nation? L'interculturalité, c'est c'est une des raisons pour laquelle nous pensons, permettez-moi pardonnez-moi, je reformule, mettre les gens en relation, c'est ça pour nous notre vision de l'interculturalité, et c'est une des raisons pour laquelle qui nous a poussé à organiser cet événement. parce que vous, qui êtes diplomate, qui êtes ambassadeur, qui avez des carrières tournées vers l'international, qui avez des carrières qui sont constamment exposées à l'autre, à l'étranger, vous êtes plus vous êtes notre interlocuteur idéal dans les échanges que nous voulions mettre en avant avec nos étudiants qui ont participé à ce webinaire. Et donc, pour cela, je vous remercie énormément. Je ne sais pas si je dois rajouter quelque chose de plus.
Cher Bruno, alors j'ai demandé à Bruno de faire un petit résumé parce que Bruno incarne aussi l'interculturalité. Bruno est portugais et fait ses études, est venu en France et fait ses études en France et s'intéresse à tout ce qui est les relations institutionnelles, donc travaille au sein de la Fédé pour les relations institutionnelles. Et c'est vrai que nous n'avons pas beaucoup parlé durant cet après-midi des réseaux sociaux. Nous n'avons pas non plus parlé de l'intelligence artificielle qui permet de traduire simultanément les langues et que je vois comme un grand atout pour maintenir nos différentes langues, car la pensée se conçoit souvent plus facilement dans notre langue d'origine, vous l'avez dit. En revanche, c'est vrai que ce mot, cette confrontation, cette compréhension de l'autre qui a été évoquée à plusieurs reprises était importante.
Claude,
Donc,
j'aimerais rajouter un petit truc.
oui,
Votre intervention m'a rappelé une petite chose. Vous savez, j'ai été très intéressé par ce qu'a dit Madame l'ambassadrice de Mongolie et aussi une autre ambassadeur qui a parlé de choc culturel. Moi, je suis venu en France, j'avais 13 ans, du Portugal, je ne parlais pas un mot de français. Et je venais d'un tout petit village de l'intérieur vraiment paumé. Je n'ai jamais été dans une grande ville. euh, et en changeant complètement ma vie avec mes parents, euh, vous imaginez à cet âge-là, c'est pas mince à faire et c'est pas forcément une tâche facile aussi à expliquer à un enfant qu'il doit abandonner toutes ses amis, ses connaissances et toute sa vie qu'il connaissait alors depuis 13 ans. Je suis arrivé en France, c'était un vrai choc. Je fais souvent cette analogie du petit poisson qui vivait alors dans un petit aquarium, dans une maison, qui était nourri, et tout d'un coup, du jour au lendemain, il est relâché dans l'océan et il voit à quel point l'océan est vaste. C'était un vrai choc pour moi mes premiers mois, même mes premières années à Paris. Vous savez, quand je repense à cette époque, je me rappelle cette citation de Charles Quint qui, quand il visitait Paris, il il dit cette phrase, Paris n'est pas une ville, c'est un monde. Et être confronté à ce monde à présent, franchement, c'est une expérience unique, difficile à vivre, mais je pense que ça a toujours, ça l'est, et ça le sera, à mon avis, à noter dans ma vie personnelle et professionnelle, vu que c'est une expérience face à l'interculturalité qui est unique. Chacun d'entre nous ici a des expériences différentes. Chacun d'entre nous a été confronté à cette interculturalité et pourtant, on n'a pas toujours tous la même vision, on n'a pas toujours tous les mêmes expériences. Et il y a des choses qui se croisent, bien sûr, mais l'interculturalité, c'est avant tout personnel. C'est personnel parce elle crée des liens. Elle crée des liens durables. Et parfois, il y a des chocs culturels, il y a des préjugés, comme Madame l'ambassadrice de Mongolie a mis en avant. Et tout n'est pas beau dans un beau monde avec des fleurs. Parfois, l'adaptation est souvent très difficile aussi. Je sais,
on
je
va
peux te
peut-être
donner,
conclure, Bruno.
on va conclure. Je vais juste donner un exemple. Il y a quelques mois, j'étais en réunion avec l'ambassadeur de Malte à Paris, qui était en poste avant en Russie, et qui nous a raconté que son quotidien face à cette culture, à la culture russe, s'est mal passé. Il n'arrivait pas à s'intégrer à cette société. Il avait du mal dans sa vie quotidienne. Donc, je pense qu'à travers ce webinaire, nous avons réussi à mettre en avant les bonnes choses d'interculturalité, les choses qu'il faut peut-être faire attention, faire gaffe, et les préjugés qui peuvent souvent nuire aux personnes autour de nous. Merci beaucoup de m'avoir écouté.
Merci Bruno. Moi, je remercie mesdames et messieurs et leurs excellences les ambassadeurs. Et nous avons réussi, alors je n'ai pas fait de pause parce que ça s'est un petit peu enchaîné. Et je vous remercie vraiment pour vos témoignages très poignants, très personnels. Nous avons balayé différents pays et j'ai hâte de la publication de cet ouvrage. Et je pense que vos contributions, parce que l'ouvrage évidemment sera disséminé auprès des milliers d'étudiants, et je pense que vos contributions auront certainement infléchi la vision des étudiants, et quand bien même elle n'aurait infléchi que la vision d'un seul, c'est déjà essentiel. Je vous remercie infiniment et je vous souhaite beaucoup de bonheur partout. Et pour nous en Autriche, un petit peu de soleil demain. Bye bye. Thank you.